His profession was that the extremely rare beastmaster, and he spent most of his time on how to control demon beasts. After years of hard work, he was finally able to barely control this Dark Thunder, a 5th-tier demon beast. And yet, a boy who was only a warrior had just announced aloud that he would deal with it. That notion was both funny and annoying for him. Even a tame 5th-tier demon beast was equivalent to a martial king of the 5 elements realm, not to mention all demon beasts were savage and had mighty physical strength. But Ji Meng did not find it funny. According to him, Xianxia would never be wrong. He drew his soft sword, and with a cry of "Unseal!" the weapon transformed into a long snake that darted towards Su Pinghong. Knowing that his opponent was a 4-stars martial lord, Ji Meng did not dare to be careless, so he fought with all his might and trapped the man in a fierce battle. Meanwhile, Xianxia walked smilingly toward the Dark Thunder. Although demon beasts had no intelligence, they had keen intuition that no human being could compare with. The beast immediately sensed that Xianxia was approaching with a bad intention. So, it stood up, staring at him warily and looking as if it would pounce on him at any time. "Hey, it's all right." Xianxia began to sing softly. My child, why are you so bad? Bullying, cheating. How can you do that? Learn to be good, learn to be loving. Love is in your heart, filling your life with warmth. Be good, and come home soon. My arms are always ready to embrace you. My child. Repent with a sincere heart. Roar. The Dark Thunder could not stand it anymore. As it did not know how to vomit, it roared to express its anger and sick feeling toward the song. However, as soon as it had finished roaring, its big eyes turned dull. Yunxiao's pupils had turned into blood-red crescents, and there was a look of unspeakable evilness on his face. "Come in now, baby," he murmured softly. The Dark Thunder shuddered as a feeling that came from the depths of its soul made it tremble, and in the next instant, it discovered that the sky had totally changed. It was now under a clear, cloudless sky. At some point, Yunxiao, who was standing in front of it, was now sitting cross-legged far away. While smiling, he stood up and walked toward it. "Don't be afraid, baby. This is the interior of the Divine Realm tablet, and I've only pulled one of your soul and one of your spirit in." Relying on the bloodthirsty power and mighty flesh, demon beasts were much stronger than human beings of the same level. But their only weakness was that their divine sense was extremely weak, and they did not have intelligence. Therefore, once they met experts like Yunxiao who were good at soul attacks, they would always be in a passive position. The Dark Thunder did not understand Yunxiao's words, but instinctively felt a little fear. Moreover, the golden texts that constantly flashed in the sky made it tremble with a rush of anxiety rising from the bottom of its heart, and filled it with dread and restlessness. A bloodthirsty instinct that came from the ancient bloodline was immediately triggered by the powerful pressure. The beast's eyes turned red, and it pounced on Yunxiao with a roar. Seeing the attack, Yunxiao's soul form turned into streams of golden light and vanished. But he appeared in the sky in the next instant, with the same faint smile on his face. They were in the Divine Realm tablet, and with the nourishment of the Great Expansion Divine Technique, Yunxiao's soul was several times stronger than when he was outside. So, even if an alchemist who was a few tiers higher than him came here in soul form, he would not be his match. He knew about beast masters. They usually controlled demon beasts through some assistive mystic equipment and various mystic arts. The bell hanging around the Dark Thunder's neck was one such assistive mystic equipment. The reason Yunxiao pulled it into Divine Realm tablet was that he wanted to subdue it with his powerful soul power. Outside, Su Pinghong was startled. He saw his mount roar and then lay down on its belly there without moving. Meanwhile, the boy warrior also sat cross-legged down, staring into its eyes, which were filled with a dull look. "Darky! Darky!" Su Pinghong called aloud, but it was useless. The beast seemed to be taken aback slightly at the sound of his voice, but then it quickly turned back to that dull and blank look. That was when Su Pinghong started to panic, his heart filled with horror. According to the standard of the arts of Beastmaster, the Dark Thunder was 80% under his control after all the training. It was almost impossible for it to betray him, However, it just turned a deaf ear to him, even though he had called it several times with the mystic art. This instantly filled him with panic and anger. It had cost him all his resources, time and efforts to cultivate this fifth-tier demon beast. It was almost equivalent to his strongest fighting strength and trump card. Even then, he thought of the boy's words, and he did not find them funny anymore. He wished he could rush over and kill the boy immediately, but his opponent, a 2-stars martial lord, fought fiercer and fiercer as the battle progressed. His cultivation base was 2 stars higher, but not only did he fail to defeat the other, but he was constantly faced with danger. As a result, he was getting impatient and angrier. Bastard! Green thunder! In a fit of rage, he took out a pair of metal hoops and put them together. Immediately, streaks of lightning flashed and bolted out of them, and with the power of thunder, he smashed them down on his opponent. Ji Meng was not panicked or nervous. His mind was as calm as water. Although he was only a 2-stars martial lord, his understanding of the martial essence was far greater than his opponent's. As long as he met the attack calmly, he would definitely win in the end. Peach Blossom's sword intent. He made an upward cut with his sword. With that, a tiny seed emerged in the air and sprouted, instantly blooming into a huge peach flower. Numerous shafts of golden light broke out of it, completely enveloping the thunderous attack unleashed by Su Pinghong. Saying that I'm crazy, others just laugh at me. I laugh at others for the truth they cannot see. The emperor's mausoleums are nowhere to be found. With no flowers, no wine, the land had been turned into farms. A painting scroll of peach blossom and flowing water unfolded under his sword. It seemed that he was now standing under a peach blossom grove, singing aloud and drinking to his heart's content. His sword danced faster and faster, and the more he swung it, the more unrestrained he seemed. Thousands of peach flowers bloomed around him, and soon, they completely flooded Su Pinghong. Impossible! Su Pinghong growled. Bastard! How can you beat me? But the cruel reality immediately despaired him, and he shouted frantically at the dark thunder, Darky! Darky! Help me! It was worse because the beast did not even move slightly this time, as if it had not heard his voice at all. Su Pinghong's heart sank. Not daring to fight again, he hurriedly freed himself and was about to flee. Trying to run away from me? Ji Meng sneered as the scene of Xianxia conjuring 7 lotus flowers with 1 sword strike in Feifeng came back to him, and he shouted, The Song of Blue Lotus Sword! His soft sword swept out through the air. However, what bloomed in the sky were not blue lotus flowers, but peach flowers. And yet, they were all conjured with the sword intent of the Song of Blue Lotus Sword. 7 huge peach flowers emerged once again in the void, and this time, they were much more vivid than in the town. A breeze blew gently over as the flowers bloomed and faded, and thousands of pink petals fell from the sky. Su Pinghong was stunned, watching in horror as the petals fell from the sky. He could not bear it any longer and shouted with all his strength, Uncle Master, help me! His voice shook the sky and rang directly into Mount Phoenix. Ah! But unfortunately, the peach blossoms had already fallen. Su Pinghong gave a miserable shriek as he died under thousands of peach flowers. Ji Meng glanced at Xianxia in the distance. He did not dare to disturb him, and besides, he suddenly felt a faint sensation of restlessness in his body, which filled him with wild joy and made him quickly sit down to meditate. It was the sign of breaking through. As time went by, the primordial chi in him finally broke through the bottleneck. He was finally a 3-stars martial lord. He observed the flow of primordial chi in his body in disbelief while a feeling of excitement washed him over. A month ago, he was only a 7-stars great martial master, and his biggest dream in life was to become a martial lord someday. Little did he know that after only a month with Xianxia, he had broken through 6 stars and become a 3-stars martial lord. He opened his eyes slightly, and was shocked to find that Xianxia was standing quietly aside, staring at him with a smile. Young Master Yun, he said, somewhat moved. Not bad, Xianxia praised. The sword strike just now did have some flavor of the Song of Blue Lotus Sword, but it is far from close. Nevertheless, with your current understanding of martial arts, it is more than enough for you to become a 3-stars martial lord. Jimeng's heart was filled with gratitude, but the words got stuck in his throat. Suddenly, he saw the Dark Thunder standing beside them, which gave him a pause. Young Master Yun, this? While smiling, Yun Xiao patted the beast's head and said, Darky is our friend now. As if to prove his words, the Dark Thunder twisted its body and rubbed its head against Yun Xiao's palm, putting on the look of a tamed pet. Ugh! Jimeng's jaw almost dropped to the ground, somewhat at a loss. He could clearly feel the aura emanating from the beast, and he knew it was as strong as a martial king. And yet it was behaving like a kitten now. He was once again rendered speechless by Yun Xiao's divine abilities. Let's go. With the help of Darky now, it will be easier for us to rush into the mountain. Yun Xiao patted the beast on the back. All of a sudden, a fierce attack came shooting down from the mountain, smashing and crushing all the trees and rocks along the way. Shockingly, a vacuum trace was formed under the impact, and the attack was pointing directly at Yun Xiao and Jimeng. Move away! Yun Xiao cried out. The two men and a beast immediately jumped up into the air and then fell back somewhere far away, staring alarmingly at the figures that gradually emerged in the mountain. Sun Xiaomei still leaned gently against Li Wenchu's shoulder as she looked affectionately at Yun Xiao and Jimeng. Her eyes flashed with a trace of surprise as she said, How did you subdue Senior Brother Su's little lion? Li Wenchu glanced at the two men with a cold face. I thought some big mice had broken in. It turns out only a 3-stars martial lord and a 9-stars warrior. Rubbish, he scoffed disdainfully. Since Senior Brother Su couldn't handle ants of these levels, he deserved to die. Yun Xiao was taken aback. Somewhat speechless, he said, You must be the fellow disciple of that guy with the lion, right? You even said the same thing. Is your name Rubbish as well? And are you from the Rubbish sect? Well, I've never heard of that before. Li Wenchu's face flickered as he bellowed, You're digging your own grave, boy. Junior sister, trap that beast. I'll come and help you deal with it once I've killed these 2 mice. I heard the Dark Thunder's blood is a great tonic. Our cultivation base will surely increase significantly after we've consumed it. With a shy smile, Sun Xiaomei darted through the woods as swiftly as a swallow, heading toward the Dark Thunder. I knew you have been waiting to taste the beast's blood for quite some time, she chuckled. Now that Senior Brother Su is dead, we can finally get what we want. Sensing the waves of killing intent coming at it, the beast flew into a rage. Without waiting for Yun Xiao's order, it roared and rushed at Sun Xiaomei, its body flashing with lightning. Jimeng's eyes lit up. The lightning was exactly the same as the one Su Pinghong had used. He must be taken it from the Dark Thunder, but his is much weaker than the beast. Placing each step on a different tree branch, Sun Xiaomei heightened her vigilance. The Dark Thunder's strength was so strong that even she did not dare to underestimate it. She raised both arms over her shoulders, and rings of blue water vapor began to rise from her. Then, with a loud cry, she pushed her hands down. Aqua hula hoops. Hoops kept flying out of her body and grew larger and larger in the air, trapping the Dark Thunder. Shrink! She gave a light shout, and at that the huge hula hoops shrank, binding tightly around the beast. There was a hint of joy in her eyes, and she laughed. A demon beast is always a demon beast. It is so easy to catch. The Dark Thunder seemed to be unconvinced. It roared furiously, and the lightning around its body crackled and flashed. Soon, the hoops, which were composed of water, began to boil, seemingly having a hard time trapping the beast. Humph! You better stop struggling, said Sun Xiaomei as she pointed out a finger, attracting the hoops up into the air and making them hover before her. Suddenly, one of her hands turned into the color of water, and she shoved it into the hoops. It looked like her hand had vanished completely. The beast, who was about to break free, widened its eyes suddenly and growled. The hoops around it began to turn solid and strong once again, and no matter how it struggled, they just would not budge. Looking coldly at the struggling beast, Sun Xiaomei smiled charmingly and said, "Oh, don't move again, you little thing. Senior brother and Lil May will come and drink your blood later. If you struggle too hard, your blood will become toxic and turn bitter, making it not nice to drink." Her harmless, seductive look was a sharp contrast to the Dark Thunder's savageness, which could be painted into a picture of a beauty and a beast. However, the beauty here was a tigress while the beast was the sheep. "Where are you looking, boy?" Ji Meng suddenly felt a gust of strong wind come blowing at his face. Startled, he swung out his sword and made a straight cut. Only then did he find that it was a false attack, and Li Wuxia was looking at him with a mocking expression. Even then, he saw the man's face begin to turn ugly, with tiny blisters popping up here and there, as if someone had just poured some boiling water at him, burning his skin and transforming him into a monster. "You are about to die, and yet you still turn your attention to somewhere else." Li Wuxia laughed evilly. Not only did his face turn ugly and terrifying, but even his voice had changed completely. "Not good," thought Yunxiao as his pupils constricted slightly. He knew it was an inheritable divine ability of demon beasts, and few human beings could obtain it. But, when an individual obtained it and began to cultivate, he or she would be able to transform into the demon beast form. He quickly took out an enhanced origin blasting pill and gave it to Ji Meng. Ji Meng hesitated, but when he sensed that Li Wuxia's aura had risen to the level of a martial king, he clenched his jaws and swallowed the pill. He knew the side effects of the enhanced origin blasting pill. After the battle, he would no longer have the strength to move on, and would have to retreat. Besides, once he lost the strength to fight, Yunxiao would be in an extremely dangerous situation. But the crisis in front of him did not give him time to think further. Unseal. Peach Blossom's sword intent. After taking the pill, his aura rose instantly from 3 stars to 4 stars, 5 stars, 6 stars, 7 stars, and rising constantly. He roared, and not waiting for Li Wuxia's transformation to complete, he raised his sword and began his attack. Sun Xiaomei watched in astonishment as she said with shock, "What pill is that? How can it augment so much strength in such a short time?" The sword moved like a dragon, and by the time it was in front of Li Wuxia, Ji Meng's cultivation base had already climbed to the level of a 9 stars martial lord, stopping just before the next major realm. He did not dare to be arrogant, so the attack was unleashed with his peak strength, with its power unlimitedly close to that of a martial king. He wanted to kill the man with one strike. Whoosh! A blast of air ejected from Li Wuxia's mouth. At this moment, he no longer looked like a human being. His head and his body had completely transformed, and he looked like a toad standing on its hind legs, huge, fat, and ugly. He gave Ji Meng's sword radiance a cold glance and casually raised an arm at it. He wanted to fight against it with his flesh alone. Bam! The sword radiance smashed down, shattering into thousands of pink light dots and drifting away in the air. As for Li Wuxia, a layer of uneven skin appeared on his arm, and he was not hurt at all. Humph! When you rely on medicine pills, there's only so much strength you can obtain. Although you are unlimitedly close to a martial king, you are still not a martial king. Li Wuxia's eyes flashed coldly, and he said with a bloodthirsty smile, "Whereas I, in this form, am a genuine 3 stars martial king, you can die now, swallowing heaven and spitting earth." Li Wuxia opened his mouth and inhaled a huge mouthful of primordial qi before blasting it out, which turned into a vacuum energy wave, sweeping toward Ji Meng. Under the attack, the surrounding air began to distort and tremble. Bam! The whole woods shook as a straight line with nothing in it tore the woods apart, the energy wave crushing all the trees in an instant. The powerful impact caused blood to ooze out of Ji Meng's 7 orifices and knocked him flying dozens of meters away. The gap between their strength was just too enormous. Even though he had taken an origin blasting pill, he was still no match for him. Ji Meng felt his body about to be ripped apart. He roared in pain and sent all his primordial qi into his legs. Only then he was able to stop after being pushed tens of meters back. Even then, he was already covered in wounds, as if he was cut 1,000 times. At some point, Yunxiao appeared behind him and put a palm on his shoulder, grabbing him and running down the mountain at full speed. The difference in strength between them was so great that there was no chance of winning at all, so their only option now was to retreat and plan again. Moreover, they had obtained sufficient information for the trip. Swoosh! A huge shadow of a toad flew over them and landed in their path. Staring coldly at them, Wuxia said, "Now you want to run away? Well, stop dreaming." He put his palms gently on the ground and began to inhale and exhale deeply. Rings of smoke popped out of his mouth, growing larger as they spread out across the air. With every inhalation and exhalation, his body grew bigger and his appearance became more and more like a toad. Yunxiao and Ji Meng's expressions changed drastically at the same time. The increasingly powerful demon aura made them feel stuffy in the chests, and their breathing also became difficult. "Young Master Yun." Ji Meng suddenly grabbed Yunxiao's arm and said decisively, "Stimulate my potential with the method you used the other day." Yunxiao's face flickered, and there was a trace of horror in his eyes. "You've just taken an origin-blasting pill, and you will die if I use the method on you." With a resolute look on his face, Ji Meng said anxiously, "If we don't try, we will really die here. There's still a chance if we do it now." The hesitation in Yunxiao's eyes vanished, and he very quickly pulled out a few 5-color divine air needles. Although he had obtained 2 5-color divine air stones from Lan Fei and Lan Xin, these were the last few needles he had. Swiftly, he inserted all the needles into Ji Meng's body. "I've only stimulated half of your meridians, but it is still extremely dangerous," said Yunxiao in a deep voice. "Try your best to control the extent of your power outbursts. Don't lose control." Ji Meng instantly felt streams of power spread out from where the needles were inserted, all flowing through his meridians and heading toward his dantian. They were so strong that he began to tremble violently. "Ha!" he howled, and in that instant, his aura broke through the barrier of a 9-stars martial lord, rushing directly into the 5 elements realm. The sight made Sun Xiaomei's pupils constrict, and her beautiful face was full of shock. Wuxia was stunned too as he watched that happen right in front of him. But he still wore the same indifferent expression. "Heresy! Now taste my toad fiend technique." After inhaling and exhaling several times, his body finally swelled to the point where it seemed to have reached its limit. Suddenly, an impact force of unimaginable magnitude burst out of his mouth, while his whole body also leaped forward with the sound wave. The Song of Blue Lotus Sword. After his strength sword, Ji Meng's head was clearer than ever, and he was able to understand the martial essence of the Song of Blue Lotus Sword in an instant. A huge blue lotus flower bloomed suddenly, stopping the sound wave. Clang! Wuxia's hands clutched at Ji Meng's soft sword while 2 forces crashed into one another, and it seemed that they were equally powerful. "Damn it! How's this even possible?" Wuxia's face became unusually ferocious as he bellowed. "How can a little piece of rubbish like you stop an attack I've unleashed with all my strength? Fine. I'll now use 120% of my power to crush you to pieces. You foul beast." "Beast!" Ji Meng's eyes were shot with blood as he sneered coldly. "We all know who the real beast here is, you ugly toad. Now die, will you?" Boom! The 2 forces collided again. Both men fought desperately, determined to kill each other. Crack! Crack! Suddenly, a discordant noise rang out from between them. Ji Meng's pupils constricted. His 2nd-tier mystic weapon had given way to the pressure at this moment and begun to crack with lines. Wuxia's eyes shone with wild joy, and he laughed. "You are a dead meat." Clang! He put more force into his hands, shattering Ji Meng's 2nd-tier mystic weapon. Ji Meng's eyes narrowed, but he showed no sign of panic. Instead, his eyes were full of madness. He sneered and put his palms together, suddenly causing the shreds of his mystic weapon to spin and wheel in the air around him, turning into gusts of wind and spreading out. "What?" Wuxia, who was about to kill Ji Meng, got his hands cut by the shreds as soon as he touched the edge of the whirlwind. His face was covered in disbelief. 10,000 peach blossoms. Ji Meng shouted aloud and pushed his palms straight out. With that, The whirlwinds around him combined and transformed into a brutal air force that blasted toward Wuxia. With all the shreds of the mystic weapon mixed in it, the attack was incredibly fierce and deadly. Block it, Toad True Body. There was not enough time to dodge, so Wuxia hastily shielded himself with demon energy and curled his body up into a ball. Under the strong air force, he was pushed back for tens of meters. Take this sword, Ji Meng. Yunxiao threw out the cold sword of Taiyin. That sword. Sun Shomei squinted at the weapon and said in surprise, Senior brother Yi's Taiyin? How did you get it? Yunxiao turned and gave her a smile. He gave it to me. You got a problem with that? Face darkened, Sun Shomei said coldly. Are you so eager to get yourself killed? Who gave you the right to talk to me like that? Although she was usually sweet, it actually depended on whom she talked to. Yunxiao was only a warrior, and in her eyes, he was no different from an ant. Yunxiao held up a middle finger and said mockingly, If you don't want to talk, shut that big mouth up, bitch. Sun Shomei's nostrils flared. What did you say, little bastard? Do you know who I am? With a disdainful smile, Yunxiao said, Of course I know. You are a bitch. Fine, fine. It seems that you really can't wait to be killed. Sun Shomei flew into a rage. Do you believe I'll come down and kill you now? Yunxiao grew impatient. You are indeed a bitch, even though you refuse to admit it. It is plain that you can't come down, and yet you still want to pretend you can kill me. If you move, your mystic art will be negated, and Dark Thunder will kill you instantly. Now stop glaring at me, your fake eyelashes are falling off. Come down and kill me if you have the guts. Otherwise, just keep your mouth shut. Stay there and stop being a bitch. You are making me look down on you. When she heard the first few words, Sun Shomei was already boiling with rage. But by the time Yunxiao had finished, she was struck dumb and at a loss of words. After taking the sword, Ji Meng immediately rushed up, using it to hack and slash and cut at Wuxia. He was not familiar with the sword, but the sharpness of a third-tier mystic weapon did not reduce because of that. Each one of his strokes froze the air into a chunk of ice, which filled Wuxia with terror. Sun Shomei held her tongue for some time, but at last, she could not help but ask, What did you do to him, boy? How did his strength grow so much in such a short time? Her voice was gentle. Yunxiao paid her no mind. His eyes were following Ji Meng, filled with deep worry. He knew Ji Meng was burning his life force in exchange for strength. The snub angered Sun Shomei again, and yet there was nothing she could do, so she just glared at him. If she rushed down to kill him, the Dark Thunder would surely escape, and it would be not so easy for her to capture it again. Ha ha! Ha ha! Ji Meng's eyes began to show madness as he hacked again and again with the sword, laughing aloud, the power of each stroke greater than the one before. At some point, Wuxia had gotten himself a pair of hammers from somewhere, and he was using them to defend against all the attacks. But it seemed that his strength was failing him. Sparks flew as the sword smashed at the hammers, but Ji Meng did not feel pity at all. He was immersed in the madness of slaughtering, totally controlled by the mighty power in himself. Puke! After holding on for a little while, Wuxia finally ran out of strength. He coughed out a mouthful of blood as his demon form slowly faded away. Fear crept into his eyes, and he quickly moved back into the mountain while struggling to defend himself. Ha! Now you want to run. Die! Ji Meng looked like a madman as he hacked again and again with the sword, striking terror and dread into Wuxia's heart. Help me, junior sister. I can't hold on any longer. Senior brother. Sun Shomei cried out in alarm. She knew she had to give up the Dark Thunder. Very quickly, she pulled herself out of the aqua hoops and flew down to the rescue. Roar! As soon as it was freed, the beast transformed into a thundercloud and bolted over. Its violence and anger of being trapped for so long exploded in an instant. The whole woods were smeared with a shade of dark blue, as if a great storm was about to descend. Senior brother. Sun Shomei landed lightly next to Wuxia. She held up her right palm, in which a glob of water vapor condensed, and then she pushed it out. In the blink of an eye, the glob spread out and transformed into a water mirror, shielding both of them from the attack. Meanwhile, Ji Meng made a cruel slash with the sword. The blade cut straight into the mirror, but he felt like he hit nothing at all, as if there was another dimension in it. Eyes widened in shock, he hurriedly drew the sword back. The mirror lasted a few more seconds before it began to vaporize. Even so, it had given Sun Xiaomei enough time. She grabbed the wounded Li Wuxia and retreated at full speed. Roar! The sky rumbled with thunderclaps as dark thunder pierced through the void in a bolt of lightning and came in front of the couple in an instant, bringing with it a great thunderstorm. Li Wuxia instantly turned pale. The force of thunder was so strong that even he, a martial king, was trembling with fear. As for Sun Xiaomei, although she had a panicked look on her face, her eyes were calm as water, and even flashed with a hint of surprise and excitement. "Senior brother? Do you love me?" "Of course I love you. But why do you ask this now?" "Since you love me." A hint of a smile emerged on her face. All of a sudden, she threw Li Wuxia out and kicked him into the thundercloud. Her face flashed with a trace of evil excitement as she said, "Since you love me, please die for me now." "Ah!" Li Wuxia let out a blood-curdling scream. All his hair stood and his skin was charred as the lightning in the cloud struck him, and then he was thrown out of it. After venting its anger through the attack, dark thunder seemed to have calmed down. It landed on the ground and fixed its eyes at the couple vigilantly, ready to strike again. There was a flicker of resoluteness and ferocity in Sun Xiaomei's eyes as she watched Li Wuxia being thrown away. Clenching her jaws, she leaped into the air and dashed over to him. A sharp blade stabbed through his heart and came out of his chest. Looking at the bloody blade, Li Wuxia's eyes were filled with nothing but incredulity. He knew the dagger. He had captured 3 second-tier alchemists and forced them to craft it for her birthday. Afterward, he had killed all 3 alchemists, who had nursed a grudge against him. Why? He knew he would die even if his heart were not pierced by the dagger, as he was already severely wounded. But he felt a pain in his heart which was much intense than the one caused by the dagger itself. Why? Sun Xiaomei burst into laughter. Why ask me? Why don't you just look at what you have turned yourself into? She pulled the dagger out and kicked Li Wuxia to the ground as she jerked a finger at him and snapped, "Look at yourself! You have completely turned into a toad. How can I stand it?" She put a foot on his head as she looked down at him and said, "I can still remember those days, you in your pure white clothes, and I in my bright, colorful dress. I was moved by your appearance, your temperament, and strength. Although among the Supreme Six, Senior Brother E and Senior Brother Song are always stronger than you, you were forever the best in my heart." Her face began to turn ferocious as if she had recalled something painful, and she put more strength into her foot. "But, in order to become stronger than them, you went to the land of demon and got yourself this damnable toad fiend technique, transforming yourself into a monster, a toad, an ugly toad." 2 streams of tears trickled down her cheeks, and her eyes were filled with hatred. She gave his head a few kicks, then said in a fierce voice, "Have you ever thought of my feelings? The feeling about the fact that my handsome husband had changed into a toad? Do you know what those people are talking about me behind us? Damn you! Ever since you transformed into a toad whenever you were cultivating, my love for you had begun to diminish, and in the end, I wanted nothing but to kill you. Puke." Her kick made Li Wuxia cough out another mouthful of blood. His eyes began to turn blank, and his pupils dilated. Before very long, the flashing of a trace of obsession in his eyes stopped before melting and fading away. "Ha ha! Ha ha! You're dead at last." Sun Xiaomei burst out laughing wildly, as if she were in the height of her joy. Suddenly, she stopped in place to give Yunxiao and Ji Meng a cold glance, and scoffed, "Do you want to kill me? Well, follow me if you think you can do that." When she had finished, she transformed into a watery shadow and bolted up toward the mountaintop. While scowling, both Ji Meng and Dark Thunder were about to chase after her. "No, let her go." Yunxiao strode over and slapped Ji Meng on the back. A dozen needles shot out of him, piercing into some trees and coming out of the other side of the trunks. The color on the needles was mostly faded. Ji Meng felt all his strength drained in an instant. He could no longer remain standing and collapsed to the ground. Yun Xiao quickly helped him up as he took out a few medicinal pills and shoved them into his mouth. Putting him on Dark Thunder's back, he patted the latter on the head and said, "Darky, take him down the mountain and back to the city of Anyong." The intelligence of a demon beast increased with its level. As a 5th-tier demon beast, this Dark Thunder already had the intelligence of a human child. And after being trained by Su Pinghong for years, it could understand its master. With a reluctant look, it rubbed its head against Yun Xiao's arm. "Ha, don't worry, I'll be back soon." He patted the beast's head and chased it off the mountain. As he watched Dark Thunder leave with Ji Meng on its back, Yun Xiao's face grew serious. He turned and rested his eyes on the mountaintop, where the true spirited fire phoenix had danced in the Divine Realm tablet. A true spirited fire phoenix. I can't believe it is a treasure related to a true spirit. Even a martial sovereign would fight desperately for such a treasure. How can I give up? He clenched his jaws. He knew there would be strong enemies waiting for him ahead, but he still could not help walking up the mountain. At the top of the mountain, Qi Jinzi seemed to be losing his patience. "How much longer will it take you to open it, Huyan Ming?" The red-haired man sitting before the cliff wall thought for a moment. "Soon, about 6 more hours." 6 hours. Qi Jinzi was somewhat angry at the answer. "The day before yesterday you said 20 hours. And now you need 6 more hours? You've been working on it for 1 whole month here." A trace of anger crept into Huyan Ming's eyes, and a look of displeasure flickered across his face. "This is a seal left behind by some ancient almighty expert," he said in a cold voice. "If it hadn't been corroded by years because of its long history, there is no way I can crack it even if you give me 10,000 years. I'm already working fast enough." Qi Jinzi was taken aback. He did not think Huyan Ming would dare to talk back to him, but he choked back his fury. After all, he had to rely on him to crack the formation. Huyan Ming was the only alchemist among the Supreme Six. As a 4th-tier alchemy lord, he enjoyed a great reputation even in the Fire Crow Empire, and his status was not lower than that of Qi Jinzi, which made him an important figure who suffered no rebuke of others. Had it not been because the treasure here was too tempting, he would have left after being pushed several times. "Help! Uncle Master! Help me!" At that moment, Sun Xiaomei ran up to the mountaintop with a frightened face, sobbing and crying. Senior brother Li and senior brother Su were both killed. "Who's down there?" asked Di Xiaoshan in shock, his eyebrows frowning. Although junior brother Su was only a martial lord, he had trained that Dark Thunder to obey only his orders. "That beast is as strong as a martial king, and even I am a little bit afraid of it." Song Chengtian was shocked as well. "Who is the enemy? Both you and junior brother Li are martial kings, and yet even you failed to stop him." She was lost for words, as she did not know how to explain, so she just said, "There were only 2 people, a martial lord and a warrior." That gave everyone a pause. Qi Jinzi's face grew dark instantly, and he said angrily, "Are you kidding me, Xiao?" Yi Xiaoshan and Song Chengtian had a suspicious look on their faces as well. Panicked, Sun Xiaomei hurriedly said, "I don't know how senior brother Su died, but when we arrived, his Dark Thunder was already subdued by the enemies. I managed to trap the demon beast, and senior brother Li was dealing with the 2 of them. He had victory within his grasp, but the warrior had used some mystic art and made the martial lord's strength soar instantly, who later killed senior brother Li." "How can this be?" Qi Jinzi said in shock. "You mean that warrior had subdued the Dark Thunder and given the martial lord the strength that could kill a martial king? Could he be an alchemist?" All eyes turned to Huyan Ming at the same time. He was already frowning as he listened to them. It is naturally easier for an alchemist with strong soul power to subdue a demon beast, but how strong the soul power of a warrior can be. I'll call him a genius if he is a 2nd-tier alchemist, but that's still not enough for him to subdue a 5th-tier demon beast who had a master, he analyzed. Moreover, I've never heard of a mystic art that can push the strength of a martial lord into the next major realm. In any case, I want all of you to be more alert, Xianxia said in a deep voice. There are only a few more hours to go, and I don't want any mistakes. If you take a wrong step, I'll flay you even if your master will scold me. Everyone stood still and did not say a word. The martial lord is seriously wounded, said Sun Xiaomei. And I don't think that warrior and the beast will have the courage to come up here. Huyan Ming sneered. Said who? He's already here. What? Everyone was taken aback and quickly sent their divine sense out into all directions. Yun Xiao, who was hiding in a blind spot, smiled bitterly. He did not expect that there was not only a martial grandmaster, but also a fourth-tier alchemist among the enemies. Since when did Baijian have such mighty forces? He thought to himself. Come out now if you don't want to die, boy. Qi Zhenzi roared and primordial qi immediately gathered in the sky, rumbling and spreading out to envelop an area almost 1,000 miles around them. Yun Xiao could taste bitterness in his mouth. With a martial grandmaster and a fourth-tier alchemist here, there was no way he could escape even if he knew how to fly. Reluctantly, he stood out from where he was hiding as he smiled wryly and said, Can I live if I come out? That's him, Uncle Master. Sun Xiaomei cried out in astonishment. She could not believe that Yun Xiao had the courage to follow her up here, more so alone. His bravery amazed her. Qi Zhenzi said coldly, If you wanted to live, you wouldn't come up here. Now that you're here, you can't hope to live. He lifted a hand and was about to strike when Yun Xiao grinned cheekily and said, Why? You are a senior and an expert, and you are the one who asked me to come out if I don't want to die. I listened to you, so I came out because I don't want to die. Are you going back on your own words now? Qi Zhenzi paused, then snorted coldly and said, Don't hope you can sway me into sparing your life with that glib tongue. Whatever you say, you are going to die today. Hold on. Huyan Ming, who was cracking the formation, suddenly said, Spare his life. I want to ask him something. Qi Zhenzi's face grew dark. Huyan Ming, what we are working here is too important for you to mess around with. Mess around? Uncle Master, are you afraid of a boy warrior? Said the alchemist angrily. What trouble can a warrior cause? I'll bear all the responsibility if anything happens. Oh, really? But can you? Qi Zhenzi said in a cold voice. I'm the supreme commander of this operation, and also your Uncle Master, so you have to obey me. Huyan Ming was so angry that he laughed. In that case, crack the formation yourself. I'll not do it for you. He stood straight up and was about to leave. You! Qi Zhenzi was fuming, but he had no other choice. With a flick of his sleeve, he said, You better be careful, or I'll flay you if anything happens. Huyan Ming answered that with a snort, then turned to Yun Xiao and said, Come over here, boy. Yun Xiao breathed a sigh of relief. He was temporarily safe now, but he had to tread carefully from here. He quickly strode over and said, Yes. But as soon as his eyes rested on the cliff wall, his face flashed with a trace of astonishment. Oh? You know this formation? Huyan Ming asked in shock. Formation? Is this a formation? Yun Xiao hastily hid his emotions by playing dumb. It does look like a formation, but what is the meaning of those texts that look like tadpoles? Huyan Ming breathed a sigh of relief. I was too sensitive, he thought. How could a second-tier alchemist recognize this ancient formation when even I had to spend a long time studying the description related to it, which I accidentally found in the books and records in the Supreme Palace, to find the way to crack it? He smiled and said, You have a good gift. It is rare for someone to become a second-tier alchemist at the age of 15. Who is your master? What he said stunned everyone. The boy was a second-tier alchemist? They could not tell Yun Xiao's alchemy level, but they could tell how old he was at a glance. He was already considered to be extraordinarily gifted for being a 9-stars warrior at the age of 15 years old, and yet he was also a second-tier alchemist? That made him an existence who would one day shake the whole world. The killing intent in Qi Zhenzi's eyes grew thicker. Such a freakish genius must have an extraordinary background. I must find an opportunity and kill him before he grows up and become a major threat. My master is the president of Tianshui's Alchemist Association. Su Han. I knew it. Hu Yanming smiled. Apart from Zhang Qingfan and Su Han, there are no other good alchemists in Tianshui. You are at least 100 times more gifted than Su Han, and he will delay your progress if you learn from him. I'm Hu Yanming, a fourth-tier alchemist from the Firecrow Empire. Would you like to become my disciple? Both Yun Xiao and those around them were taken aback while Qi Jinzi flared and snapped. Leave this matter to some other day. Hu Yanming, focus your attention on cracking the formation. Humph! Hu Yanming snorted with disapproval, but when he saw the dumb look on Yun Xiao's face, he said, You just stand aside and consider that. I believe you know how big the gap is between two alchemists who are one realm apart. When he had finished, he paid Yun Xiao no more mind and began to focus on cracking the formation. It was impossible for Yun Xiao to become Hu Yanming's disciple, so he wasted no time to consider that. Instead, he stood aside and watched how the alchemist cracked the formation. Although the man's technique was still rusty and monotonous, he had grasped the key of the formation. Even though he was a little slow, the formation was being cracked bit by bit. The clue of this treasure in Mount Phoenix was accidentally discovered by Qi Jinzi among the ancient books and records in the Supreme Palace. He was skeptical at first, but after carefully studying the clue, he found that it was real. So, he instigated the Supreme Six to help him. In order not to divulge the news, he made an army trap kunjin, and at the same time, slaughtered all the people in the 3 towns beneath the mountain. The formation on the wall was indeed an ancient restrictive formation. Even Yun Xiao could not fully understand it, and he could not crack it in a short time unless he was given a year or so to study it. The texts on the formation were indecipherable silver scribbles that looked like tadpoles, which had some similarities with the Great Expansion Divine Technique's golden tadpole texts. Although they were not identical, they seemed to come from the same system. It was because more than half of the formation was cracked that there was a sign of a precious treasure about to be born. Yun Xiao learned something as he watched Hu Yanming crack the formation. At his level, few formations could let him learn something new, but when he did, they were usually extremely ancient formations. As the formation was being gradually cracked, Qi Jinzi and the others became more and more excited. They all fixed their eyes at the fire phoenix on the wall, nervous to know what the treasure was. After all, it was an ancient relic that had been passed down for heaven knows how long, and none of them knew what was inside. Perhaps a real true spirited fire phoenix would fly out of it when the formation was cracked. Raise! Hu Yanming cried in a soft voice. He was more nervous than anyone else, as he was now at the last phase of cracking the formation. His forehead was already covered with sweat. With the last incantation gesture sent into it, all the tadpole texts on the wall finally turned silver, and then they flew out of the rock one after another, forming into chains in the air before gradually fading away. The fire phoenix pattern trapped in the middle of the wall was finally released, and it flew straight out of the rock and soared into the air. Immediately, the whole sky turned red, with a crimson phoenix dancing gracefully in the center of it. True spirited fire phoenix. A true spirited fire phoenix. Qi Jinzi murmured in excitement as he stared at the phoenix in the sky. Shocked, Hu Yanming and the others looked up as well. Could it really be a living phoenix? But that was ridiculous, wasn't that? Yun Xiao, on the other hand, was on his guard. He knew that thing in the sky was just the remnant of a phoenix's consciousness, and it would vanish soon after it was released. The real treasure was likely to appear at any time after that. Suddenly, the fire phoenix let out a long cry and plunged headfirst toward the ground. Wherever it passed, the world was set ablaze, and the sky turned red with all the burning. It seemed the whole world had turned into a burning hell. Not good. It is coming at us. Qi Jinzi was greatly terrified. The mighty pressure of a true spirit pressed down on him and rendered him motionless. A fear of being powerless rose from the depths of his heart, and he even felt like kneeling and worshipping the phoenix. Sun Xiaomei was the first to give in to the pressure. She dropped to her knees and crouched on the ground, shaking violently. After that, the others, including Song Chengtian and Yi Shaoshan, did the same. Boom! The phoenix finally fell on them, enveloping everyone in a burning hell instantly and turning the whole world around them into a sea of fire. A short while later, Everyone was shocked to find that they were still alive, and although the flames around them emanated a deadly temperature, their bodies were not burned at all, and they did not feel any pain. This, Hu Yanming was awestruck. This is just the remnant of a fire phoenix's consciousness? So, it means we should be inside the memory fragment of a fire phoenix's consciousness now. Heaven! I can't believe a consciousness world can be materialized. What kind of existences are those ancient true spirits? Xiao was flabbergasted as well. As a 9th-tier alchemist in his previous life, his soul power was so strong that few in the whole heavenly martial continent could surpass him. However, he could sense through the fire phoenix's remnant consciousness that its soul power was far greater than his in his previous life. What exactly does this fire phoenix want? There must be a reason why it brings us into its consciousness. Just when everyone was panicked and at a loss, the sea of fire around them gradually faded away, revealing a boundless desert. This place? Xiao felt the sky looking a bit strange, and when he sensed that the primordial qi in the surroundings was 10 times richer than usual, he cried out in terror. Could this be the heavenly martial continent of ancient times? What? Xianxia was stunned when he heard that. Are we back in the ancient times? Hu Yanming gave Xiao a surprised look, then glared contemptuously at Xianxia and sneered. We are inside the fire phoenix's consciousness, and this is the land of ancient times remaining in it. We are not back in ancient times. Xianxia choked back his anger and asked with a dark voice, So what now? How can we get out of here? Get out. Hu Yanming laughed. If I am not mistaken, the treasure should be in this consciousness. I've finally come in here after all the hard work, so how can I leave just like this? In this world constructed entirely by consciousness, the strength of an individual's consciousness could transform the whole world. As a 4th-tier alchemist, Hu Yanming's soul power was far greater than Xianxia and others. He felt extremely comfortable here like a fish in the water. Therefore, he thought nothing of others. Where exactly is the treasure? Everyone was glancing around, but apart from the boundless desert, there was nothing else in sight. Hu Yanming was also searching by sending his divine sense out in all directions. If truth be told, he was not very sure about his guess. After all, it was the first time he had ever experienced something like this, and it was inevitable for him to feel uneasy. What are you looking at, boy? Yi Shaoshan suddenly asked as he fixed his eyes at Xiao. Hearing his voice, everyone turned and looked over. Xiao was staring up into the sky, his face full of doubts. Oh, the sky! Everyone looked up and saw a giant phoenix shadow, with a bright flame throbbing at its center. That is the flame of the phoenix? Hu Yanming was shocked, and then he went wild with excitement. I see. The so-called treasure must be this flame of the phoenix. As an alchemist, his desire for all kinds of strange flames was stronger than anyone else's. The phoenix was an ancient true spirit, and no one could estimate how strong its flame was. Although the others did not have to refine items, if they could get the flame, it should still bring great benefits to their cultivation of martial arts. For a moment, everyone was very excited. Xiao gave them an indifferent look and sneered. Why are you all looking excited like monkeys? The flame is 10,000 miles away from the ground, so how are you going to get it? Even if you can fly, we don't know if there's any difference between the void here and that of the outside. Also, this world of consciousness might collapse at any time, and we have no idea if we would be alive after it collapses. His words immediately dampened everyone's enthusiasm like a bucket of cold water. He's right. We don't know how to get out of here, not to mention whether we can get the phoenix flame. Would I be alive if this world collapsed? Suddenly, they were at a loss of what to do. Xiao sneered in his heart and squinted up at the sky. The phoenix shadow was falling at a great speed, but because it was too far away, it looked like it was not moving at all. His eyes were filled with greed and excitement that could not be concealed. At a glance, he immediately felt that the flame in the shadow was unimaginably powerful, and he knew it was not an ordinary phoenix flame. In fact, he was sure that it was the natal true flame of a true spirited fire phoenix. Legend had it that all ancient true spirits were existences of the 10 worlds realm, and the natal flame of a fire phoenix was condensed of its origin essence. Ignoring its power, which was certainly great, just the essence of the 10 worlds realm contained in it was more than enough to make all the martial sovereigns in heavenly martial continent go wild. Hu Yanming's eyelids suddenly twitched as he cried out in alarm. Look, the shadow seems to be slowly descending. The other's divine sense was nowhere near as good as that of Yunxiao and Hu Yanming, so it took them a little while more to discover that. All the same, they were extremely happy, and Qi Jinzi announced in high spirits, "Let's put aside how are we going to leave this place now and get the phoenix flame first." Face slightly tensed, Hu Yanming said in a cold voice, "There's still some time before the shadow lands. Let's discuss how we are going to share the flame." All eyes rested on Qi Jinzi at the same time. Although he was their uncle master, everyone was an enemy in the face of such a precious treasure. Not to mention his cultivation base was the strongest among them. Meanwhile, Hu Yanming was sneering in his mind. They don't know that the strength of the soul in this world of consciousness could make up for the lack of cultivation base. If a fight were to break out later, I'll be the strongest one. When he saw everyone looking at him, Qi Jinzi laughed and said, "My dear disciple nephews, are you worried that I'll pocket the treasure without sharing with you? Rest assured you will get a fair share of it." Song Changtian snorted coldly. "We don't know yet the volume of the flame and whether it can be divided. What's your suggestion, Uncle Master? If the flame can be divided, I'll get 2 parts and each of you 1 part. What do you think?" "Humph," Hu Yanming sneered. "You have a big appetite, Uncle Master. It was me who had worked so hard to crack the formation, and all you did was push me from the side. And yet you want to take 2 parts. Qi Jinzi's face grew cold. "Oh, it seems disciple nephew Hu Yan is not happy? Tell me, does any one of you dare to handle such a major operation? Had it not been because of me, you would all have long been killed by Tianshui. Not to mention that I'm the one who found the clue of this treasure in books and records. So, why can't I take 2 parts? Hu Yanming smiled and said, "I have no objection to that if only I take 2 parts as well." Song Changtian snorted again. "You want to take 2 parts as well? Then what about senior brother Yi and me?" Yi Shaoshan nodded and said, "I have no problem with Uncle Master taking 2 parts, but if you also want to take 2 parts, what if I really do?" A cold look flashed across Song Changtian's face. "Defeat both of us, then we'll give it to you," he said with a grim grin. "If that's what you want," Hu Yanming said in a cold voice, "fight me together, both of you." "Together?" Song Changtian was taken aback, but then he burst out laughing. "Ha! Hu Yanming, are you out of your mind? You, a martial lord, want to fight 2 martial kings at the same time. You are wasting my time." Hu Yanming pointed a finger at the sky and said, "If you don't want to attack first, I will. Come." Thunder. The whole world of consciousness shook as a thunderbolt as thick as a bowl materialized in the void and smashed down hard. Boom! The thunderbolt landed next to both men. They avoided it by jumping lightly to the side, but their eyes were filled with shock and incredulity. Although it could not hurt them, the thunderbolt was as strong as any attack unleashed by a genuine martial king. Qi Jinzi's pupils constricted. He did not sense any fluctuation of primordial qi from Hu Yanming just now. But how was that even possible? "Ha ha!" Hu Yanming laughed wildly, his face full of excitement and disdain. "Have you forgotten? This is not the real world, but the Fire Phoenix's space of consciousness. Everything here is a condensation of consciousness. Whoever has a stronger divine sense would have a greater degree of control over the space to do whatever he wants. In other words, I, Hu Yanming, am the strongest man in this world." A flicker of determination flashed across his face as his soul power spread out crazily. As if triggered by the power, the sky began to slowly distort and change, and in the blink of an eye, the boundless desert began to slowly turn green, with patches of grass and flowers growing out here and there. Apart from the descending fire phoenix shadow, the whole world of consciousness was changing. At this moment, Hu Yanming was like the god who created the world, standing high up and looking down at everything. Xiaoshan and Song Chengtian were struck dumb. How could they fight against such mighty power? Yunxiao's face flickered, and he cried out loudly, "Stop it! This space of consciousness has gone through too many years, and most of its power has vanished. If you keep wreaking havoc wantonly like this, you will cause the space to collapse and kill us all in here." That gave Huyen Ming a pause. As if he had thought of the possibility as well, he gave Yunxiao a surprised look before slowly retracting his soul power. "Am I eligible for 2 parts now?" He turned and threw the question at Yi Xiaoshan and Song Chengtian. Both men's faces had turned livid as they gave no answer. From the power Huyen Ming had demonstrated just now, they knew they could not defeat him. Besides, if they were to leave this place, it was very likely that they would have to rely on his power. So they had no choice but to accept that in silence. Huyen Ming sneered, then turned to Yunxiao. "It seems that you are not just an average second-tier alchemist. Who exactly is your master? I don't believe Su Han has the ability to cultivate a disciple like you." Yunxiao gave him a faint smile. "Why do you ask so many questions? Do you want to share a part with me?" Qi Jinzi snorted coldly and said, "If you want a part as well, buy it with your life." "Ha!" Yunxiao did not say another word, but he was extremely relaxed on the inside. Huyen Ming frowned slightly. Although he thought Yunxiao was a bit strange, he did not think much of it. After all, a second-tier alchemist could not pose any threats to him. Everyone was standing still, looking up at the rapidly falling shadow of the fire phoenix. Finally, after some moment of waiting, a vast phoenix landed on the earth. The ball of throbbing true flame quickly burned along the outlines of the shadow and, in an instant, blanketed the whole world in a sea of fire. Illusion! Huyen Ming was shocked. The flames around him appeared to be unreal, and he could only feel a shuddering fear from where the ball of true flame was, which made him want to kneel and worship it. "What are you doing, boy?" As the few men were somewhat struck dumb, Sun Xiaomei's cry rang into their ears, and then they saw Yunxiao walking slowly toward the true flame, one step at a time. "What am I doing?" "Claiming the true flame, of course." Yunxiao answered with a casual smile, showing no sign of stopping. "Claiming the true flame? You really want to die?" While fuming, Qi Jinzi leaped into the air as a mass of pale blue primordial qi emerged around him and gradually converged in his palm, which he threw it at Yunxiao. "The true flame is not something that a boy as lowly as you can claim." Yunxiao narrowed his eyes, and a hint of a sneer emerged on the corner of his mouth as his right hand drew a circle in front of him. Immediately, the whole world changed color, and thousands of clouds began to gather in his palm, while all the primordial qi within a few miles around was drained by him. Then he threw the palm out. "What?" Qi Jinzi turned pale with fright. He could feel that the power of Yunxiao's palm was far stronger than his. The other men's faces fell as well, all stunned by the sudden change. Bam! 2 forces collided, and sure enough, Qi Jinzi was weaker, and the impact knocked him flying away. Everyone sucked in a cold breath while Huyen Ming, aghast, cried out at the top of his lungs, "The power to control the space of consciousness. You are just a mere second-tier alchemist. How can you do it?" With a cold grin, Yunxiao said, "Both of us are alchemists. If you can do it, why can't I?" Huyen Ming flew into a rage and he bellowed, "I am a 4th-tier alchemist, and you are just a mere second-tier alchemist. We are not the same at all. But, since you've revealed your strength too early, you are dead meat." He had decided to kill Yunxiao. 10,000 thunderbolts, strike this boy. Rumble. Dark clouds began to emerge in the sky while masses of lightning energy crackled and gathered, forming a huge energy mass. For a moment, the sky was flashing with blinding blue light. If struck by such a tremendous force of lightning, even a martial grandmaster would have died on the spot. All the others gave Huyen Ming a startled look and backed away, fearing that the force of lightning might injure them by accident. But Yunxiao just stood there calmly as he looked up at the sky and cried in a soft voice, "Who allowed you to produce thunder and lightning when I am here? Be gone now! Be gone now!" His voice rang straight up into the sky, echoing across the earth. As if his words were the law, the dark clouds and the thunderbolts that veiled the sky fell silent in an instant, and even began to slowly disappear. Before very long, a shaft of sunlight shone through the clouds and landed on the ground. Puke! With his power forcibly dispersed, Huyenming felt like someone had struck him hard in the head, causing him to cough out a mouthful of blood. How is this possible? He screamed in both anger and shock. Who the hell are you? Why is your soul power stronger than mine? Yunxiao narrowed his eyes as he lifted his head and enjoyed the warm sunlight, with golden tadpole texts flashing between his eyebrows. As this place was the condensation of the true spirited fire phoenix's consciousness, he could use the great expansion divine technique without any restriction. Under the sky, the strength of his soul was at least above the 5th tier. He felt the consciousness of the sky. The connection between his soul and the world was getting closer and closer, and he could now utilize the power of the fire phoenix's consciousness. I haven't felt so powerful in a long time, he murmured under his breath. This boy is just too weird. Let's kill him together. Huyenming felt a terrifying force driving his soul power out of the connection with this world of consciousness. Qi Jinzi bellowed angrily as well. Use your strongest attacks. All 4 of them immediately rotated their primordial qi at maximum speed, and each took out and unsealed their mystic weapons. Meanwhile, Huyenming, with his bloodshot eyes, bulging veins on the forehead, and menacing face, was trying his best to stop Yunxiao from communicating with the world of consciousness using his soul power. The divine thunder of Blunather, the holy saber of green fire, extreme cold energy, the dark claws of rain, for terrifying auras towered into the sky, rushing toward Yunxiao as fast as bolts of lightning. As long as Huyenming could cut off Yunxiao's connection with the world, he would certainly die under the joint attack of 3 martial kings and a martial grandmaster. Yunxiao only smiled lightly, as if he had not seen the attacks, or he thought nothing of them. Suddenly he raised his right hand. Streams of natural primordial qi began to gather from all directions, forming into a long sword in his grip. If one looked at it carefully, one would see that the blade's surface was carved with the sun, the moon, stars, birds, animals, mountains, and rivers. How's that possible? Sweating all over, Huyenming gasped and screamed. Why can you still effortlessly control the power of consciousness under my full attack? Who the hell are you? Yunxiao paid him no heed. Instead, he looked affectionately at the sword in his hand and mumbled with a smile. Long time no see, my old friend. Although we are in a space of consciousness, being able to look at you again brings back a lot of memories. He lifted the sword up high. There was a cold, serious look in his eyes as he watched the 4 attacks coming at him and cried out, one word at a time, /sword. Reigns supreme over the world. Almost all the power of consciousness that could be mustered was gathered on the sword. As Yunxiao slashed it out, the whole space began to rumble and become extremely unstable. Boom! All 4 forces were completely devoured by the sword strike, which lost none of its momentum and smashed down hard on the 5 people. In the next instant, a deafening explosive noise filled the air, drowning all the miserable screams and shrieks. Yunxiao's face turned extremely pale, and he could no longer maintain the /sword, causing it to dissolve into streams of light and vanish from his grip. However, the golden tadpole texts of the Great Expansion divine technique on his forehead became brighter and more vivid as they crazily nourished his damaged soul power. Not good. This world is about to collapse. A look of anxiety came over Yunxiao's face as he hurried off toward the Phoenix True Flame. If truth be told, nothing would happen if this space of consciousness collapsed, and he would just return to the top of Mount Phoenix. However, the true flame would also be gone with the space. After taking a hit from him, Qi Jinzi and the others were nowhere to be seen. But Yunxiao did not have time to look for them. He ran as quickly as he could, and after a while he finally touched the edge of the true flame. Holding back his excitement, he gently grabbed at it with one hand. The flame jumped up, as if it were alive, and darted directly into his hand and kindled his arm. Ah! An intense pain frightened Yunxiao as the flame penetrated his primordial qi shield and burned his flesh. In just the blink of an eye, he was already covered in flame from head to toe, screaming and struggling painfully. What the hell is this? Am I going to die here? He was horrified to find that the flame not only burned his flesh, but also his soul. Impossible! I'm Martial's sovereign vanquisher. How can I die so easily? Yunxiao was scared out of his wits. He would be dead if his soul were consumed by the flame. Paying no more attention to the flame on his body, he quickly sat down and materialized his soul in the Divine Realm tablet, which instantly saved him from the crisis. This is bad. My fleshly body is completely gone. He was struck dumb as he stood there in the Divine Realm tablet and sensed the destruction of his body. What shocked him even more was that he saw flaming clouds begin to form in the sky inside the tablet, which slowly transformed into a phoenix. As if it had found Yunxiao, the phoenix let out a long cry and swooped down from the sky toward his soul form, turning the air into a sea of fire as it flew. Soon, the whole Divine Realm tablet was ablaze. Yunxiao was completely dumbfounded. Now he had nowhere to run. He watched the phoenix descend and felt a sense of helplessness as a bitter smile crept upon his face. I was given another chance to live, and I've only awakened for a very short time. But I'm going to be dead again. And this time, my soul will be completely burned off, so it is very likely that I won't be able to reincarnate again. As he felt a bitter taste at the back of his throat, the phoenix landed on him, sending sparks all over the world. His soul began to burn amidst the roaring flames, and his consciousness gradually faded away. At that moment, a faint phoenix cry rang out from the bottom of his heart. His vague consciousness was afloat, drifting into a great distance with the cry. Strange images appeared in his mind, and he felt he had turned into a phoenix, soaring in the sky. The world in his eyes seemed to be the heavenly martial continent, but there were minor differences. He could see much further than he usually did, and he felt he could see the edge of the world with just a blink of the eye. This, beneath him or the phoenix, was an endless stretch of mountains with terrifyingly rich energy. He was shocked. He knew the mountains with only a glance. Although its energy was not as rich as what he saw now, he would never forget this place, where he died in his previous life, Tiandang Mountains. As the phoenix wheeled above the mountains, bits of memory locked in his mind slowly returned to him. He could hardly calm down with what happened in his previous life surfaced back up, which seemed to wake him up. I thought I was dead? Why is my consciousness still existing? What I am looking at right now should be the phoenix's memory. Well, since there's nothing I can do, I'll just follow it and have a look at the ancient heavenly martial continent. Yunxiao recalled of the state he was in now, and that calmed him down instantly. He threw away all the distracting thoughts and focused his attention on the things in the phoenix's eyes. Suddenly, a light beam shot out of Tiandang Mountains, towering into the sky. It was followed by another located in different angles, then another. Soon, a total of 6 light beams rose from within the mountains, stabbing straight into the clouds, each separated by a distance of about 1,000 miles. The 6 light beams formed a circle around the phoenix, trapping it within. With their appearance, the whole mountain began to shake violently. Flocks of birds took to the air in panic and packs of animals ran wildly through the forest, and even natural primordial qi seemed to recede rapidly. Gradually, an evil aura began to spread out. Rumble! A muffled roar rang out of the mountains as streams of black aura began to emerge and spread, dispersing the rich primordial qi in the air. Then, all of a sudden, a huge monster appeared out of those black streams, with only its upper body in corporeal form, and its lower body composed entirely of dark gases. No sooner had it taken shape that it looked up at the true spirited fire phoenix in the sky. Yunxiao was shocked when he saw the monster. It looked exactly the same as some ancient drawings he saw in Tiandang Mountains. According to the text accompanying the drawings, the monster was called Blackfire Fiend. Roar! The Blackfire Fiend's upper body puffed up suddenly, and then it roared. In the blink of an eye, The void around it shattered to pieces like a mirror while the sky was filled with long rifts and dark holes. Meanwhile, a strong sound wave blasted toward the phoenix. The fire phoenix let out a long cry and made a graceful turn, before spitting out a stream of flame. The sky turned red in an instant as a sea of fire poured down and crashed into the approaching sound wave. Rumble! The impact of the two forces ripped the sky in half. A long black rift appeared, filled with all kinds of negative cosmic energy, devouring everything around them. Xianxia was completely awestruck. He was once an existence who stood at the pinnacle of heavenly martial continent, and yet, he had never seen a battle that could shatter the void with just one attack. The story of how he had almost collapsed the holy city when he and martial sovereign tyrant fought each other for the rank on the heaven and earth power chart was already passed around like a legend. But, compared to what he saw now, it was like child's play. Although he had lost his body, he still swallowed reflexively. That was not the only thing that shocked him. He wondered what kind of a monster was this black fire fiend. Since it was strong enough to fight a true spirit, why had he never read about it in books and records? When he first saw its drawing on a cliff wall, he had thought it was just a totem of some ancient tribes, perhaps a stronger demon beast. But when he finally saw it now, he realized how wrong he was. This black fire fiend also had the power of the 10 Worlds realm. Roar! The black monster seemed unhappy when it saw the phoenix block its attack. It roared and rushed straight up. The black gases that formed its lower body stretched thinner like a rope that was pulling at it. The two mighty experts of the 10 Worlds realm caught each other in a fierce battle, filling the sky with streams of red flame and plumes of black gas that tangled together. Soon, the bright clear sky grew dark. The void within 10,000 miles around was riddled with black rifts, and everything within 100 miles was shattered to pieces. Huge black holes were crazily devouring all kinds of energy. Under such a chaotic environment, the two experts continued to fight crazily. The fire phoenix's attacks were all about dexterity. It flew gracefully over the black holes, constantly breathing true flames. The black fire fiend, on the other hand, kept chasing and attacking the phoenix with plumes of black gas ejected from its hands. Xianxia squinted at the black gas for some time, but he could not figure out what it was, and why it could resist the true flame. The more they fought, the fiercer they became, and like that they fought for 7 days and 7 nights in the sky. Eventually, they became weaker, and the broken sky began to heal itself. Xianxia's consciousness was with the phoenix, so he knew that it was already at the end of its tether, and it was barely fighting with its life. As for the black fire fiend, he guessed it was not much better, because its black gases had turned extremely faint. Their wounds were even more appalling. The phoenix's crimson body was covered in black specks, almost turning it into a black phoenix, while the black fire fiend was all red from the burning. Eventually, the black fire fiend was the first to exhaust all its power. After letting out a few furious roars, it fell from the sky rapidly, the black gases that formed its lower body shrinking and retreating into Tiandang Mountains. Then, natural primordial chi began to pour into the mountains once again from all directions. At that moment, the 6 towering light beams grew thinner, and then dissolved into light dots and vanished. Apart from numerous black holes, the sky fell calm and silent. Dragging its seriously wounded body, the fire phoenix gave a sad cry and flew into the distance. Xianxia could clearly feel that its life force was draining rapidly, and the black gas was wreaking havoc in it, crazily devouring its vitality. After flying for a long time, the phoenix could no longer continue, falling headfirst to the ground. Xianxia's consciousness ended at that moment, and his world turned black. So that is the fire phoenix's memory before it died. It is said that a phoenix can be reincarnated. But why didn't it? Xianxia was puzzled, but there were other questions that confused him even more. What is happening to me now? I can't feel my body and soul, but why can my consciousness still exist? Even then, a ball of flame leaped up in the darkness, gradually consuming his consciousness. He knew it was the phoenix's natal true flame. Although wreathed in flames, instead of burning off, his consciousness became clearer. What is this? He stared in horror at the swaying figure that gradually emerged in the flames, which was his soul form. At last, he felt his soul, and his consciousness finally had an embodiment. Slowly he opened his eyes, and he saw that he was still inside the Divine Realm tablet. The Phoenix True Flame was still burning over his soul, but he did not have any discomfort. Instead, he felt more and more comfortable. After some moments, the flame concentrated and flew into his soul, drawing all the flames that veiled the sky into it and forming into a mark of a fire cloud on his forehead. My soul is rebuilt. Xianxia was shocked as he felt the brand new soul form and a mighty, surging power that was circulating in it. Third tier. I've reached the level of a third-tier alchemist. His jaws almost dropped to the ground as he murmured. Not only that, the energy in my soul is so vast that it seems to be endless. He looked up slightly. The sky in the Divine Realm tablet was bright and clear. Then, he sat cross-legged down, trying to sense his connection with the outside world. When his soul fled into here, his fleshly body had burned to ashes in the flames. Soon, a strange expression crept up his face. Inside the Fire Phoenix's space of consciousness, Xianxia was sitting cross-legged on the ground. His body was flashing brilliantly transparent, with every blood vessel visible. It was the Tyrant Body Tempering Technique's glazed body. His eyes flicked open suddenly, and they were filled with amazement. Carefully, he inspected his body and found that not only was he not wounded, but his flesh was also at least a few times stronger than before. My body is rebuilt as well. Xianxia was both surprised and glad. The rushing primordial chi in his body told him that he was now a 3-stars martial master. He had advanced 3 stars in a row. His heart was filled with great joy in an instant. It turns out that the Phoenix Flame was not trying to kill me, but making me reincarnate. He jumped to his feet, and a mark of a fire cloud emerged on his forehead. At a careful glance, inside the mark was a sea of fire. I wonder if it is a fortune or a disaster to have the Phoenix True Flame in my soul. It is way too strong for me to control now. I think I can only use it when I am back to the peak level of the 9 Heavens realm. He sighed, but in the next moment, the corner of his mouth curved upward into a smile. However, protected by the flame, who in this world can hurt my soul, when all the true spirits are long gone? He said to himself proudly. The surrounding space began to transform rapidly. The world was collapsing, and Xianxia knew it was because he had taken the Phoenix True Flame, and the remnant of the Fire Phoenix's consciousness had vanished completely. Anyway, with the soul power of a third-tier alchemist, he would be safe amidst the collapse. So, he just stood there, unmoving, and watched quietly as the world around him broke apart. Soon, everything in the surroundings floated and drifted away in streams of light, and he was back on Mount Phoenix in the next instant. He looked over his shoulder at the cliff wall. It was now as smooth as jade, and the ancient formation was gone. He then spread out his divine sense, which was at least several times stronger than before. In just a moment, the whole mountain was under his watch, the trees, plants, animals, and anything that moved. Do you think you can hurt me when you are so seriously injured? Xianxia suddenly sneered and looked up. A shadow blocked the sunlight. Covered in blood, Xianxia was floating in midair with his right hand lifted. Streams of primordial chi gathered from all directions in his palm, but they were as thin as threads, and it took a very long time for them to form a small ball. Well, if you insist on trying, I won't stop you. With a sneer, Xianxia took out the sword of springwater. The blade flashed coldly as it darted up into the air. Xianxia's pupils constricted, and an unconvinced look mixed with despair could be clearly seen in them. You have become a 3-stars martial master, he screamed in a hoarse voice. I can't accept this. This is impossible. As soon as he saw Xianxia swing out the sword, he knew he could not win with a body that would collapse at any time. He never dreamed that as a martial grandmaster, he would be schemed by a boy warrior and fall into such a miserable state. Just you wait, boy. When I recover, I will find you and kill you, no matter where you hide. After bellowing once, he finally gave up the idea of killing Xianxia and dragged his injured body. flying into the distance. Meanwhile, 3 figures darted out of 3 different places on the mountain and left after him. They were none other than Yi Shaoshan, Song Chengtian, and Huyan Ming. They, too, were almost killed by the attack, and they were at the end of their tethers now. They knew they would certainly be killed if they stayed, so when they saw their uncle master had left, they quickly fled the mountain as well. As the weakest among them, Sun Xiaomei had been blown to pieces in the space of consciousness, vanishing together with the world. Wait until you have recovered? Ha! We will know who is the one to get killed then. Yunxiao's eyes flashed cruelly. Their injuries were too grave, and it would take them at least a year to recover. Such a time was more than enough for him to cultivate to a level where he could kill them easily, now that both his soul and fleshly body had reincarnated. Suddenly, his eyebrows frowned. Then a hint of a smile emerged on his face as he felt a warmth in his heart. In his divine sense, he saw 4 figures running up the mountaintop. Xiao Qingwang, Luo Yunshang, and Chan Desheng, led by Dark Thunder. Young Master Yun, Xiao Qingwang and Dark Thunder arrived first. The man glanced around suspiciously and found nothing unusual, but the beast was staring at Yun Xiao with curiosity, as if it had sensed some changes in him. Carefully, it came to him and rubbed its head against his arm. Yun Xiao. Luo Yunshang came next. She looked him up and down nervously and asked, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. What could happen to me?" Yun Xiao answered with a smile. "Where are the enemies, kiddo?" Chen Dashing was the last to arrive. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that Yun Xiao was fine. Yun Xiao chuckled. "I'll tell you what happened when we return. I estimate Baijan's army will retreat within the next few days." Chan Dashing was taken aback. Then he suddenly cried out in shock. You have become a martial master? A 3 stars martial master." The other 2 were stunned at the same time, and they felt great storms raging in their hearts. It was not long ago that Yun Xiao parted with them, and now he had broken through another 3 levels, not to mention that he had stepped into the next realm, from a warrior to a martial master. There were beads of cold sweat on Xiao Qingwang's forehead as he smiled wryly and said in an incredulous voice, "Before the army set out, you were just an 8 stars warrior. It has only been half a month, and you are already a 3 stars martial master. Are you trying to shame us to death?" In addition to being shocked, Yunshang was even more sure that Yun Xiao was Gu Feiyang's disciple. Apart from that man, who in this world can cultivate such an extraordinary disciple? "I'm just lucky, that's all," Yun Xiao smiled. "Let's talk again after we have left the mountain." Lucky? Everyone was speechless, and even Dark Thunder gave him a scornful snort. Soon they returned to Anyang. With Huyan Ming gone, the formation that enveloped the 3 towns disappeared as well. Under Chun Dashing's command, the army of 800,000 soldiers marched straight toward Kunjin. The operation immediately threw Baijan's army into confusion. With both ends under attack, it routed and retreated into Baijan's territory, but not before suffering heavy casualties. Finally, the army marched into the city and joined those inside. Yun Xiao was a little nervous when he was about to see Li Changfeng. The major part of his soul and memory was Gu Feiyang, but for the last 15 years, he was also the eldest grandson of the Li family and Li Changfeng's son. The man was a middle-aged general. Although he had an extraordinary appearance, Yun Xiao still felt a little embarrassed to call him father. "Why are you so quiet when you see your father?" Li Changfeng swung down from his horse, then walked over and threw his palm at Yun Xiao's face. With a wry smile, Yun Xiao caught the slap with a hand, and then was surprised to find that it did not carry much strength at all. He felt a warmth in his heart as he moved his lips. "Dad!" The father pulled back his hand angrily and snapped, "How dare you block my slap? I'll teach you a lesson when we are back home." Despite that, Yun Xiao could see a hint of happiness flashing in his eyes. "You got yourself a good son, boy," said Chan Dashing grudgingly with a look of envy in his eyes. That gave Li Changfeng a pause. "Did this kiddo cause troubles along the way, Uncle Chen?" "Don't worry, I'll beat him to death later." Chun Lin gave him a punch on the chest and said angrily, "Will you stop pretending?" Pretending? Li Changfeng did not understand. Pretending what? I say he's not pretending, just playing dumb. Han Qianfang joined them. I can't believe you have hidden such an amazing son for so many years. Fuck. We thought you were our brother. I get frustrated whenever I see my good-for-nothing son. But the thought of your Yunxiao would always balance me out, Chen Lin added. How am I going to balance myself now? Fuck. What are you talking about? Han Qianfang snapped. We are not brothers anymore if you keep playing dumb like this. Can't you see your Yunxiao is already a 3-stars martial master? Chen Lin was fuming as well. Can't you see your Yunxiao is already a 2nd-tier alchemist? A 3-stars martial master? A 2nd-tier alchemist? I thought this kiddo's aptitude is so bad that he can't cultivate at all? Both men's words struck into Li Chongfeng's head like thunder. He turned and looked at Yunxiao. As a martial lord, he could tell that Yunxiao was indeed a 3-stars martial master with a glance. It was just that he did not want to probe his son with divine sense. Therefore, he did not find that out as soon as they met. You really have become a 3-stars martial master? Yes. And you are also a 2nd-tier alchemist? Ugh, I was. Why did you hide that from me? Li Chongfeng's eyes turned red in an instant, and he was shaking from head to toe. Holding back the tears in his eyes, he ran over and kicked Yunxiao hard, knocking his son flying away. After staying in Kunjin for 3 days, the army set out again, returning to the capital. Using the excuse that he was sick and wanted to recuperate in the capital, Li Chongfeng threw the command of the city to his few deputies and joined Chen Daxing's army. He even took the same chariot as Yunxiao. Yunxiao did not have the mood to pay him any mind. Every day, he monitored Ji Meng's situation closely, and his face grew heavier as days passed by. Ji Meng had been in a coma since he returned from Mount Phoenix. Jia Rong had fed him some medicinal pills, but those only stopped his condition from becoming worse. His vitality was getting weaker. However, as long as he was still alive, Yunxiao was confident that he could save him, although it might be a little troublesome. Chen Daxing had purposely chosen the longest route for the return journey, one that would make the army visit the most cities. As a result, it added nearly 20 days to the trip, and when they finally arrived in the capital, it was already a month later. But none of the officers or soldiers had any complaints about the long journey. They were all beaming with joy and excitement, and if they had any complaints, it would be about not having enough cities visited. The victorious return of the army shook the entire court. The result of the largest military operation against Baijian over the last 5 years was exceedingly well, and the court was shrouded in a nervous atmosphere. After all, everyone knew that the return of the army was not the end of the episode, but the arrival of the final moment that would decide the fate of the 2 princes who fought each other for the throne. A greater storm was about to envelop the capital of Tianshui, and everyone was busy choosing sides. It would be too late if they chose their sides after the situation was clear. Adding icing on the cake was easy, but only by offering timely assistance could one step into the inner circle. Qin Yang was reading the reports brought to him with a gloomy face in his mansion. His eyes filled with venomous hatred. I knew those fools from Baijian were unreliable. Fortunately, that matter has been a success, and I've also received a piece of unexpectedly great news. He rose to his feet and stood in the empty great hall while speaking coldly. Qinyu Li Yunxiao, Xiao Qingwang, I'll be waiting for you here, and I'll watch how you all fall to pieces from your high position. A platform for welcoming the army was being built outside the city. Whenever an army returned in triumph, it was a custom for the emperor to welcome it with all the courtiers. And it was no exception this time. But the whole court could smell the scent of an approaching storm. It was said that the emperor had no plan to welcome the army himself this time, and the platform was built under Qin Yu's order. The situation in the city was growing tense. The army had made camp 30 miles from the city, waiting for the welcoming ceremony. Everyone was speculating if the emperor would appear on the platform on the day the army marched into the city. If he were truly absent, then Qin Yu's move would be deemed as roping in military ministers without authorization, which was a felony. So, the people in Qin Yu's faction were restless with anxiety. If they left the city and welcomed the army with him, they would have committed a felony as well. However, if they did not, they would undoubtedly be kicked out of the faction. Anyone with a pair of keen eyes could see that Xianxia, who had the support of almost the entire military, was bound to succeed. 3 days later, the construction of the platform was completed. Xianxia had taken a bath and changed into a fresh garb. He was clad in a brocade robe embroidered with the pattern of 5 dragons chasing a pearl and a black rhino belt around his waist. Beaming with energy, he stood with head held high on the platform like a lord who reigned supreme over the world. Bai Mao was still in her white dress, and her face was still veiled with a thin sheet of satin. She stood behind the prince and watched him with an approving and affectionate look in her eyes. "Your Highness, it seems His Majesty will not be here today." Lord Su's cautious voice rang out from behind. Xianxia threw a glance at the imperial palace in the center of the capital, and saw it blanketed in a shade of dusk, lifeless and almost dying. According to the laws, no building in the capital could be taller than the imperial palace. However, the height of the welcoming platform was doubled purposely, which made it about 10 meters taller than the palace. Standing on top of it, Xianxia could see the complete landscape of Tianshui. With a sneer, he walked straight to the 9-dragon throne prepared for Xinjiang, then turned and sat down on it in front of all the courtiers. "Father is unwell, so I will carry out his duty today. Long live your Highness Prince Yu." Lord Su hurried to the front of the throne and dropped to his knees as he cried out loudly. The courtiers looked at each other. It was a rebellious act to call that out so openly and loudly, but they were no idiots, and they knew it was time for them to choose a side. So they all knelt and picked up the cry. Their voices soon spread out over the capital. "Long live your Highness Prince Yu! Long live your Highness Prince Yu!" The cries stunned those courtiers who had chosen to stay in the city, filling their eyes with deep concern and worries. Even the common people in the streets were terrified on hearing that, as if they could sense that something serious would happen soon. Street vendors and shopkeepers packed their things and shut their doors in a hurry, and everyone returned to their homes and dared not to come out. Standing atop the city gate, Long Qing stared at the lofty platform in the distance. At last, he sighed as he spun and ordered, "From now on, the city is under martial law and enters the first level of control. No one is allowed to wear weapons to the streets or gather a crowd to engage in an affray. You may kill any offenders at will." In the courtyard of his home, Lan Hong had brewed himself a pot of tea and was sipping slowly from his cup. He looked up at the sky and murmured, "Has it finally begun?" Li Chunyang was standing on the platform now. When he saw the group of courtiers flattering the prince, he felt disgusted as if he had just swallowed a fly. While frowning, he said, "Your Highness, don't you think this is not so appropriate?" Xianxia was slightly taken aback, but he held up a hand all the same and stopped the cries with a smile. "All right, that's enough. You may rise, my loyal subjects." Then, he turned to the side and said, "Lord Su, list down the names of all the courtiers who have not come today." "Yes, Your Highness," Lord Su answered hurriedly. He was bursting with joy. By assigning such an important task to him, the prince had clearly taken him as one of the loyal confidants. The courtiers who had knelt and bowed their heads breathed a sigh of relief. They were glad that they had made the right decision, and at the same time gloated over those courtiers who were about to suffer. Some were thinking about the offices that were about to be emptied, wondering if they could climb higher this time or fill the vacancies with their own juniors. "How much longer do you think it would take them to arrive, Duke Jingua?" Unable to contain his joy, Qin Yu asked with a big smile. Li Chunyang sent out his divine sense as he narrowed his eyes slightly and answered, "About the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn." "Great! I can't wait for this historic moment to arrive." The prince rubbed his palms together in excitement. Suddenly, a cold voice rang out from beneath the platform. "I wonder what historic moment made you, my brother, excited like a monkey?" Everyone looked down at the same time and saw Qin Yang, who was holding Qin Zhang with both hands while staring coldly at Qin Yu. At that moment, a eunuch cried out in a sharp voice, "Here comes His Majesty the Emperor. You are requested to come down the platform and pay your respect." All the courtiers looked nervous, and their eyes were fixed on Qinyu, waiting for his orders. Qinyu sneered and said loudly, "Pray pardon me for not paying my respect, father. The platform is too high, and it is troublesome to come down. It will be better to let Qingyang help you up here, only then I will pay my respect." Face dark with rage, Qingyang stared at Qinyu like a venomous snake and mumbled in a trembling voice, "Fine, fine. You are indeed my son." With Qingyang's help, he walked slowly up the platform. It was very quiet as everyone watched the historic moment in silence. Time made it inevitable for the old to be replaced by the young, and every new sovereign brought his own courtiers. However, when many courtiers saw this with their own eyes, they still had mixed feelings. Li Chunyang let out a faint sigh. He felt that he was really old, and his heart was filled with sadness when he recalled the harmonious days he had with Qinzheng. Soon, Qinzheng and the others walked up the platform. "His Majesty is here. Why are you all not paying your respects?" Qingyang said in a cold voice. "And Qinyu, don't you think you should stand up and return the throne to father?" Qinyu snorted, then reluctantly got up from the throne and bowed stiffly. "Greetings, father." As soon as he did that, all the courtiers dropped to their knees and bowed their heads. Li Chunyang was the only one who remained standing like a statue. As a martial king, he was exempted from kneeling and bowing to the emperor. Qinzheng gave Li Chunyang a glance with his cloudy eyes, and there seemed to be a lonely look flashing across his face covered in gray hair. With the careful help of a few people, he sat down on the dragon throne. Qin Ruxue was here too, following behind Qinzheng in silence. She knew today would be a special day. As a member of the royal family, she knew this would happen sooner or later. The main reason she came was to have a look at Yunxiao, and she also could not bear to watch her aging father be bullied by his own son. "Rise," Qinzheng said to all the courtiers in an indifferent tone. "You all are very good." Nobody knew what he meant by that, but the loneliness and helplessness in his voice were plain to hear. Looking at the dying old man who was once their ambitious emperor, many people sighed in their hearts. Not long after the emperor sat down, a dark cloud drifted over the bright clear sky, and the earth began to tremble slightly. Meanwhile, numerous figures emerged on the distant horizon, accompanied by tall poles with flags waving in the air. Qinzheng sat dully on the throne, and he seemed drowsy. While frowning, Qinyu walked up and said, "Father, it's time." Only then did he look up and speak softly, "Let's begin." His voice was weak, and when he had finished, he fell back into the drowsy state. When he saw the many tiny green dots in his father's cloudy eyes, Qinyu could not help but sneer in his heart, and at the same time, he gave Qingyang a scornful look. Then, he walked to the front of the platform and cried out aloud, "Let the welcoming ceremony begin." Immediately, 2 columns of cavalry clad in ceremonial outfits blew into their horns and slowly spread out to make a passage. After that, a chariot with several drums was pushed out, and 2 muscular men beat the drums with all their might, shaking the sky with loud pounding noises. Riding on horses, Chen Dashing and others wore grave expressions. They had communicated with Qinyu, and they knew today would be a historic day for Tianshui. Chen Zhan said excitedly, "Young Master Yun, your contribution is the biggest in this operation, and I think Prince Qin you will at least give you the title of Duke." "TSK, TSK. Your family will have 2 dukes then." Yun Xiao gave him a faint smile and said indifferently, "When he ascends to the throne, I will leave Tianshui." "Why?" Chun Jin asked in shock, but then seemed to understand something suddenly, so he fell silent. Meanwhile, Chen Dashing gave him an approving look. He knew Tianshui was too small for someone so gifted as Yun Xiao, and he would leave the place sooner or later. Luo Yunshang, on the other hand, felt her heart skip a beat when she heard that. Suddenly, she was seized with fear. Was that man leaving Tianshui? For a moment, she got restless, but then very quickly made up her mind. No matter where Yun Xiao planned to go, she would follow so that she would not be too far away from that man at least. All the 800,000 soldiers of the army were fully clad in armor, which shone blindingly under the sunlight. It looked as if a sea of armor was pouring over. And what followed them was the murderous air of soldiers, which swept over the courtiers on the platform, making them extremely uncomfortable. "Stop!" Chun Dashing cried out at the top of his lungs when the army was beneath the platform. The soldiers halted at the same time, their footsteps so uniform that they seemed like machines. "Father!" Qin Yu shouted. Qin Zheng woke up. With the help of Qin Yang and Wuxia, he walked slowly to the edge of the platform. Looking down at the flashing sea of armor, the old emperor felt a stab of pain in his eyes. In a hoarse voice, he said softly, "I have brought my courtiers here to welcome the return of our victorious army." He purposely raised his voice, trying to shout his words out. But his face looked so tired after trying, and only those stronger martial warriors could clear him. "Today is not only the day our great army defeated the enemy and returned in triumph, but also the day the state of Tianshui will set a new course for the future." His words instantly shocked everyone and made them nervous. Colors and spirits seemed to return to his eyes as he cried out, "Today, I will announce the crown prince for Tianshui." Qin Yu's expression changed drastically as he strode up and shouted, "Hold on!" Qin Zheng's words shocked everyone, and Qin Yu's face turned dark and cold as soon as he heard them. If he allowed his father to announce Qin Yang as the crown prince, the legitimacy of his throne would be questionable when he ascended it in the future. So he had to stop it from happening. "What do you want, Qin Yu? Are you trying to stop father from announcing the crown prince?" Qin Yang demanded coldly. The respect for heaven, earth, monarch, parents, and teacher was the most important virtue for a man. So although every man here belonged to Qin Yu, he would not dare to violate that virtue openly. There was a flash of menace in Qin Yu's eyes when he said, "No, how would I do that? However, before the announcement is made, I wish to ask father 3 questions." Qin Zheng gave him a look and said wearily, "You may ask your questions." Clang. Qin Yu drew a sword and lifted it up high as he asked in a loud voice, "Father, is the sword in my hand sharp?" No sooner had his voice faded away than the 800,000 soldiers beneath the platform cried out in unison, "Sharp!" Their voices shook the sky. Even the platform almost collapsed under the mighty shout. Qin Zheng's face fell and turned bloodless in an instant while Qin Yang fell silent. Qin Wuxia felt a pang of sadness, but her eyes were not on the platform. She was staring at the gallant figure that stood at the forefront of the army. "Second question, father, is my army mighty?" 800,000 soldiers cried out in unison again, "Mighty!" A triumphant smile appeared on Qin Yu's face. He lightly tapped the sword in his hand with a finger, making it ring like a dragon roar, and then shouted, "Last question. With such a sharp sword and mighty army, am I, Qin Yu, your son, qualified to take over the state of Tianshui?" Perfect silence fell. Everyone was stunned, but their eyes shone with excitement as they watched the great historic moment unfold. Pressured by the army's murderous air, Qin Zheng's face turned as pale as sheet, and he was shaking all over. He looked like he was about to collapse at any time. Even Qin Yang was stupefied by the display of power. Li Chunyang sighed quietly and looked away. Staring at the calm face of his grandson beneath the platform, he felt joy and thought, the world is their playground now. Beneath the platform, Chun Dashing's face grew serious as he suddenly cried out in a strong voice, "We beg your majesty to abdicate." His cry was immediately picked up by thousands of men. Not only the courtiers, but even all the 800,000 soldiers shouted in unison, "We beg your majesty to abdicate. We beg your majesty to abdicate. We beg your majesty to abdicate." The cries echoed and spread thousands of miles away, but amidst them, the capital was unusually quiet, with only columns of imperial guards listening in the empty streets. Qin Yang mustered all his strength and roared, "This is treason, Qin Yu." Showing no fear at all, Qin Yu took a step forward and sneered, "Father has done too much for this state. Now is the time for him to enjoy his life. As his best son, I need to shoulder the burden for him and take care of this state." His best son, Qin Yang scoffed. Who would believe that? Who dares to not believe that? Me! A discordant voice came from behind. Everyone turned and wanted to see who was so bold to stand out at this moment. Several figures walked slowly up the platform. Their auras were not overly strong, but they gave everyone a feeling of reverence, which made everyone bow their heads slightly. Master Zhang Qingfan, Master Su Han, when did you come out of your seclusion? Qin Yu was taken aback. There was a look of horror on his face and a flicker of rage in his eyes. He did not expect their arrival at such a critical moment. You are very wild, Qin Yu. Zhang Qingfan gave him a cold look, which made the prince's heart sink instantly. He was shocked to discover that Zhang Qingfan's aura seemed to be different from before. In the past, the alchemist had always displayed his ability to the full extent, but now he was like a pool of calm water, unfathomable. Zhang Qingfan walked straight to Qin Zhang and bowed as he said gently, I'm here, Your Majesty. A hint of a smile emerged on Qin Zhang's face as he said, I'm glad you are here. Who are these people? His eyes rested on the few strange faces behind Zhang Qingfan and Su Han. They, too, were emanating the same noble air, which clearly showed that they were alchemists. While smiling, Zhang Qingfan introduced the men to the emperor. This is Master Yuan Hao from the Firecrow Empire's Alchemist Association, and he is a 4th-tier alchemy lord. This is Master Wang Chun, a 3rd-tier great alchemy master and also Lord Yang Di's personal disciple. This is Sun Zhengzong, also a 3rd-tier great alchemy master. And this is Su Xiang, Master Yuan Hao's follower and a martial grandmaster. The crowd was dumbfounded as Zhang Qingfan introduced the men one by one, ignoring the 2 3rd-tier alchemists. Just the 4th-tier alchemist and the martial grandmaster were enough to strike awe into everyone's heart. And one of them was even Yang Di's personal disciple. For the people of Tianshui, Yang Di was almost like a god. A moment ago, everyone was in high spirits, but now their hearts began to sink. Li Chunyang's face fell as well as he looked at Su Xiang in horror. His heart raced when he sensed the faint primordial qi emanating from the man, and he knew that was undoubtedly the aura of a martial grandmaster. Su Xiang's eyes were cloudy and slightly closed. As if he had sensed Li Chunyang's gaze, he sneered and his eyes flashed with a glimmer of light, which shot into Li Chunyang's chest like an arrow. Li Chunyang grunted and coughed out a mouthful of blood. The fact that he, a 1-star martial king, was wounded by a mere glance filled his eyes with terror. Nobody knew the secret exchange between them. Yuan Hao's eyes swept across everyone. Then he smiled and said, You were treating us like outsiders when you introduced us like that, Brother Zhang. I'm sent here by the Firecrow Empire's 3rd-tier Alchemist Association to award badges. After yesterday's tests, Brother Zhang and Brother Su had passed the assessments and officially become 4th-tier alchemy lords. What? Upon hearing what he said, everyone was stunned as if they had been struck by lightning. It was a great shock to everyone that 2 4th-tier alchemists were born at the same time in Tianshui. Even Qin Zheng's old face was covered in shock. He stared incredulously at Zhang Qingfan, as if asking for confirmation. Zhang Qingfan smiled and said, I'm just lucky, Your Majesty. His acknowledgement immediately made all the courtiers feel like falling into an abyss, and when they saw the wild joy on Qin Yang's face, they felt a great weight pressing down on their chests. Qin Yu was dumbfounded. He already had the success within his grasp. All it would take was Qin Zheng's abdication. And he still had the 800,000 soldiers and all the courtiers behind him even now. However, in the face of these few gray-haired old men, his strength and claim seemed so weak and groundless. He suddenly felt a trance at this moment that his pursuit of the throne seemed like a joke. Qin Zheng laughed, but then it quickly turned into a fit of violent coughing. It's been so many years, Qingfan, and you've finally broken through. A smile appeared on Zhang Qingfan's face, and his eyes were filled with gratitude. Your Majesty, I remember when I started following you in my 20s, my biggest dream had been to keep exploring the field of alchemy. About 10 years ago, I began to feel that my ability fell short of my wishes, and I thought I would just be a 3rd-tier alchemist for the rest of my life. I didn't expect that heaven was so kind to me and had given me a chance to break through again. When an alchemist broke into the next tier, not only would his strength be greater than before, but his lifespan would be prolonged as well. If Zhang Qingfan still failed to break through, he would not have much time left. But now, he was given another 50 years to live. The smile on Qin Zheng's face gradually faded away as he said bleakly, "Too bad that I'm not far away from the end of my life, and I can't witness your glorious moment." Yuan Hao was somewhat moved as he watched both men talk about the old days. He said smilingly, "Please accept my congratulations, Your Majesty. As long as either Master Zhang or Master Su is willing to stay in Tianshui, then your state will be directly promoted to an upper-rank state without the need to fight." Qing Fan. Qin Zhang grabbed Zhang Qingfan's hand hard. His eyes filled with a look of pleading. Looking at his withered arm, Zhang Qingfan sighed in his heart. He was actually older than the emperor. "Rest assured, Your Majesty," he said. "I'll stay in Tianshui for the rest of my life. Besides, Master Yunxiao, to whom I am most grateful, is also in Tianshui. So, how can I leave?" "Master Yunxiao?" That gave Qin Zhang a pause, and he looked puzzled. "Yes, it is all because of Master Yunxiao's guidance that Brother Su and I could make the breakthrough this time." The courtiers were looking at each other. Who is this Master Yunxiao? Does Tianshui have such a great alchemist? Yuan Hao was shocked as well, and his eyes lit up. "Oh, I did not expect there is such a hermit in Tianshui. Can you introduce him to me, Brother Zhang? I wish to visit him." Wang Chun and Sun Zhengzong also looked startled and expectant. It was an extremely rare opportunity for alchemists to learn from each other and ask for advice, and anyone would hope to visit an existence who could make 2 third-tier alchemists break through to the next level with just a lecture. Zhang Qingfan glanced at all the courtiers and shouted loudly, "Is Master Yunxiao here? Qingfan wishes to express my gratitude for the guidance you've given me." Su Han, too, stepped forward and said, "Su Han also wishes to express my gratitude for the guidance Master Yunxiao had given me." Nobody dared to make a sound when 2 fourth-tier alchemists were shouting. Everyone was thinking hard, trying to recall anything related to this Master Yunxiao, but they got nothing. Beneath the platform, Li Chongfeng murmured to himself, "Master Yunxiao? Why does he have the same name as my son?" Han Qianfeng chuckled and whispered, "Maybe it's our kiddo Yunxiao," Chun Lin said in a deep voice. "I can't believe you two still have the mood to make fun when the situation has turned for the worse." Luo Yunshang was shocked, and she looked at Yunxiao in amazement. Both she and Jia Rong knew the Master Zhang Qianfan and Su Han were talking about was exactly the 15-year-old boy in front of them. Now that he was called out, Yunxiao naturally could no longer keep silent. He jumped off his horse, and he walked up to the platform under the glazed eyes of the crowd. With a smile on his face, he said, "I just gave you a little advice. Your breakthrough is entirely a matter of accumulation. I don't deserve your gratitude." Li Yunxiao. Master Yunxiao. Everyone's jaw dropped to the floor. Does he think that anyone with the name Yunxiao is a master? How could this boy be so cheeky as to walk up and admit he is a master? He really doesn't know the meaning of death. Qin Yang was startled at first, but then a sarcastic smile appeared on his face, and he could not help but want to laugh. Meanwhile, Li Chunyang's face fell, and he cried out in a deep voice, "Stop fooling around. Get off the platform right now." As he said that, he dashed over and stood before Yunxiao. He could not believe his grandson would make such a joke at this moment. Even a martial grandmaster would have to suffer if he offended a 4th-tier alchemist, not to mention Yunxiao. Every powerful alchemist was followed by strong warriors. For example, Yuan Hao was followed by Su Xiang, who was only one of the many warriors following the alchemist. Therefore, most people would rather offend a martial grandmaster than a 4th-tier alchemist. This boy got his head hit on the lintel when he left home. "I hope you can pardon his nonsense," Li Chunyang explained in panic. Yunxiao was stopped beneath the stairs, and when he heard Li Chunyang ask him to get off the platform, he answered, "Oh," as he turned and walked back. "Hold on, Master Yunxiao." Zhang Qingfan cried out in a hurry as he and Su Han strode up, shoving Li Chunyang to the side and flicking their sleeves in front of Yunxiao. They tidied up their clothes, and then bowed deeply to him while speaking respectfully. "We thank you, Master Xianxia, for the guidance." "What?" The courtiers, the 800,000 soldiers, and everyone else felt their eyeballs drop to the floor. They rubbed their eyes over and over again, and some even bit their lips to confirm if this were just an illusion. In that instant, at least 100,000 men were bleeding from their lips. Li Chunyang's lips were bleeding as well, but he thought it was not enough. So he also bit his tongue, arm, and hand, and found that he could feel pain from all of them. Li Changfeng was even more aggressive as he slapped himself on the head. Blood spurted out of his crown and smeared half his face bloody, but he did not seem to mind. "I can clearly feel the pain. So what's going on?" There were hundreds and thousands of people both on and beneath the platform, but all held their breath and none made a sound. For a moment, a weird silence hung in the air. Xianxia did not step forward to help both men up, as if it were only right and natural for him to accept their bows. He smiled lightly and said, "I've said that your breakthroughs are entirely a matter of accumulation. Remember, the road of alchemy is still very long, and fourth tier is just the beginning." "Fourth tier is just the beginning." "Ha! How daring!" Yuan Hao was so angry that he laughed. "What an insolent boy! Brother Zhang, Brother Su. So this little punk is the master you were talking about." Wang Chen's eyes flashed with surprise as he found the remark very familiar. He remembered his master, Yang Di, used to say that as well, and his tone was surprisingly similar to that of this boy. Sun Zhengzong's expression changed drastically when he saw Yunxiao's face. "You!" he shouted in both shock and anger. "Master Yuan Hao, this is the boy I told you about. He's a cheater. He had cheated the alchemist badge." Zhang Qingfan and Suhan flew into a rage. "Watch your mouth, Yuan Hao," Zhang Qingfan snapped. "I thank you for coming all the way to assess me, but if you insult Master Yunxiao again, I'll sever my ties with you." "Sun Zhengzong, I am the one who gave Master Yunxiao his alchemist badge. How can he be a cheater?" Suhan said in a cold voice. "Had it not been because Tianshui's Alchemist Association is only a 5th-level branch and can only give out 2nd-tier badges, I'll have given Master Yunxiao a 4th or even 5th-tier badge." Both Yuan Hao and Sun Zhengzong were taken aback. They did not expect such a violent reaction from both men. "Ridiculous! I can't believe both of you, as 4th-tier alchemists, can be fooled around by a 15-year-old boy," said Yuan Hao coldly. "He may be amazingly gifted, but it is just ludicrous to hear you call him a master." Yunxiao only smiled as he stopped the fuming Zhang Qingfan and Suhan. His divine sense was cultivating within the divine realm tablet in his soul form. Therefore, it was not easy for anyone to find out his actual alchemy level. Besides, he did not care a fig about these doubts and ridicules, and he did not think there was a necessity to argue with them. According to the rules, anyone who faked or cheated an alchemist badge must be killed. "And Master Suhan, you can't get away with it either," said Sun Zhengzong. Yunxiao's eyes grew cold. "Are you saying that I've cheated my 2nd-tier badge?" "Of course you did." "Very well," Yunxiao sneered. "I'll have a match with you today. If you lose, does that mean your alchemist badge is a fake one?" That gave Sun Zhengzong a pause, but then he quickly put on a disdainful smile and said, "Oh? You want to have a match with me?" Li Chunyang could not believe what he heard, and he looked worried. He knew Yunxiao was a genuine 2nd-tier alchemist, but Sun Zhengzong was a 3rd-tier alchemist. The gap between them was huge. "Since you are so confident, why don't we have a bet?" said Yunxiao. "What an interesting boy. How would you like to bet?" asked Yuan Hao. "The loser will kneel and kowtow 3 times to the winner in front of all 800,000 soldiers and all the courtiers, and then bow deeply and make way for the winner whenever we meet. Also," Yunxiao paused for a moment, staring at Sun Zhengzong. "I want you to take out all the things you've been given by the Li family over the years as the wager. Master Yuan Hao will be the judge. What do you think?" Sun Zhengzong was taken aback. He was not afraid of having a match with Yunxiao, but the wager, well, it did not really matter if he lost those things, and he would just feel pity for some time at most. But if he lost the match, he would have to kneel and kowtow in front of so many people. For a moment he stood frozen on the spot. Why? Are you afraid? A mighty third-tier alchemist like you is afraid of me, a fake second-tier alchemist? Ha! Yunxiao's unconcealed disdain filled everyone's mind with doubts. Sun Zhengzong's face turned red. Who said I'm afraid of you? I'll have a match with you. It is just that I fear you can't come out with an equal amount of wager. He took off a storage ring from his finger and wiped away his seal on it, then handed it to Yuan Hao. Yuan Hao was slightly surprised after he had inspected the ring's contents with his divine sense. He smiled at Sun Zhengzong, and the expression on his face clearly read, "You sure are giving the boy a hard time." Sun Zhengzong sneered proudly, looking at Yun Xiao from the corner of his eye like a rich man staring at a poor fella. Yun Xiao laughed in his heart when he saw that. Zhang Qingfan and Su Han exchanged a glance. Then both removed their storage rings and handed them to Yun Xiao. Take all our things, Master Yun Xiao. Sun Zhengzong's face flickered, and his eyes gleamed with anger, but he did not dare to speak a word. He could not afford to offend two fourth-tier alchemists at the same time. Yun Xiao rejected their offers. He took off his own ring and said smilingly, "I have the wager ready here." After saying that, he wiped away his seal and placed the ring in Yuan Hao's hand. As soon as he glanced at the contents with his divine sense, Yuan Hao was startled, and he gave Yun Xiao a surprised look. The value of Yun Xiao's things is higher than Zhengzong's. What? Sun Zhengzong's eyelids twitched as he stared incredulously at Yun Xiao. He had taken most of the things away from the Li family's treasury, and although there were still many things left, he knew they were not worth too much. Yun Xiao laughed again in his heart. The military operation had brought him a fortune. Although most of them were gold coins, which were nothing to an alchemist, they were still quite scary when they came in tremendous numbers. And he had not missed Su Pinghong and Li Wensher's storage rings either. There was even a demon beast egg in Su Pinghong's ring, the value of which was immeasurable. If all the gold coins and primordial stones in his ring were to pile up, they could easily form a few hills. Yuan Hao was genuinely stunned by them. Never mind about the extra. Yun Xiao waved a hand. He knew he would win, so he naturally did not mind the difference in their wagers. Sun Zhengzong was so furious that his face turned blue. It was like he saw a beggar on the side of a street, and just as he put out a mocking smile, the beggar scoped out a handful of gold coins and threw them at his face. Yuan Hao was slightly surprised. He did not know from where Yun Xiao's confidence came. And when he saw both Zhang Qingfan and Su Han sneering, his heart skipped a beat. Could this boy really be a master? He carefully studied Yun Xiao once again. Although there was some mystery about the boy, he could tell his actual age with a glance, which was only 15 years old. Even if Yun Xiao were indeed a genius or an alchemist cultivated by some top power in the continent, it was impossible for him to reach the third tier at such a young age, let alone defeat Sun Zhengzong, who was a seasoned third-tier alchemist. With a smile, he asked, "How will the match be fought?" Sun Zhengzong said seriously, "Please set a theme for us, Master Yuan Hao. This will be fairer." Yun Xiao smiled faintly as he waved a hand and said, "There's no need to be so troublesome. You can choose whatever you are best at as the topic of the match, as long as it is within the field of alchemy. I have no problem." What? That startled Sun Zhengzong and Yuan Hao at the same time. Although the difference of a tier between alchemists was tremendous, some alchemists' achievement in certain topics were not necessarily weaker than those who were one tier higher. Sun Zhengzong would have been a little concerned if Yun Xiao insisted to choose a topic he was best at, which was why he proposed to let Yuan Hao set the theme. By doing so, he was also showing his respect to Yuan Hao, and he hoped he could win some favor. But now, Yuan Hao asked carefully, "Have you really decided, Yun Xiao? I genuinely doubt whether you do know anything about alchemy. You ought to know that every alchemist has something he or she is especially good at, and even I am no match for Zhengzong in some topics." Yes, he did not think Yun Xiao would win. But the boy was, after all, someone respected by Zhang Qingfan and Su Han. He did not want to mess up his relationship with two fourth-tier alchemists because of this, so he tried to sound a warning. Yun Xiao smiled. "You will see whether I do know anything about alchemy later. Just let him choose the topic, lest he is unconvinced when defeated by me." I want him to kowtow 3 times to me today. Sincerely convinced. What an arrogant tone. Yuan Hao's pupils constricted slightly, and he felt a little angry. In that case, Zhangzong, you will choose the topic. When he had finished, he narrowed his eyes and kept quiet, waiting for mayhem to ensue. Sun Zhangzong swallowed. Although what he was about to say would lose him some honor, victory was more important than anything to him now. Let's keep this simple. We will see who's got better pill refining skills. He paused, his eyes gleaming grimly. Then he went on with a hideous grin. But with 3rd-tier medicinal pills. What? Sure enough, that took everyone aback. By now, the crowd already knew Yunxiao had the badge of a 2nd-tier alchemist, and that meant he was, at most, a 2nd-tier alchemist. But Sun Zhengzong proposed a match of refining 3rd-tier medicinal pills. That was not something a noble alchemist should have said, or so everyone thought. The vague reverence they had for the profession of alchemist burst in that instant. Aren't alchemists all proud fellas? I thought they will never resort to such a scheme. How can he be so crafty when his opponent is generous enough to let him choose the topic? A hint of anger crept up Yuan Hao's face, and he felt ashamed for Sun Zhengzong. Meanwhile, Zhang Qingfan and Su Han were flaring. Sun Zhengzong, you are a disgrace to all the alchemists in the world. Zhang Qingfan snapped. If you still have a little pride in being an alchemist, choose a proper topic to compete with Master Yunxiao. Sun Zhengzong snorted. He dared not to argue with Zhang Qingfan, so he turned to Yunxiao and sneered. Why are you so quiet? I thought you were very boastful just now. Haha. If you are afraid, you can just admit defeat and kneel in front of me right now. Yunxiao looked at him as if he were a great fool. Have you finished? Enough dreaming? When do you want to start? I don't have time to play with a monkey like you. You! Sun Zhangzong's face was blue with rage as he screamed. Have you heard what I said? We will see who's got a better pill refining skill with 3rd-tier medicinal pills. You don't need to repeat your shamelessness. I heard you and so did everyone else. Do you have any other rules? Speak them now, lest you refuse to admit defeat later. Fearing that Sun Zhengzong would come out with some other rules that could bring disgrace on the Firecrow Empire's Alchemist Association, Yuan Hao quickly said, there are no other rules. You just have to refine a 3rd-tier medicine pill each. We will compare the medicinal strength if they are the same type of pills. And if they are different, we will compare the purity. You may begin now, and you have 2 hours. An empty space was quickly cleared out on the platform to serve as the competition venue. Luckily, the platform was large enough so all the courtiers and the 800,000 soldiers could watch from their positions. Both the princes had a bitter look on their faces. They did not expect that their fight for the title of Crown Prince would turn into a private competition between alchemists. Perhaps in these people's eyes, the Crown Prince of a small state was nothing when compared to a 3rd-tier alchemist. Qin Yu's palms were sweaty. He knew he would be completely defeated if he failed to take the title of Crown Prince today, now with all his trump cards exposed. He also knew that Yunxiao was the key to his success. After all, Qin Yang's strongest supporter, the 4th-tier alchemist Zhang Qingfan, held Yunxiao in high esteem. As long as Yunxiao was willing to speak a word or two to him, even if that could not change his stand, it could at least make him slightly neutral. Moreover, there was another 4th-tier alchemist, Su Han, who had not stated his stand clearly. Qin Yang, too, had noticed that. He stared with a glum face at Yunxiao, hoping Sun Zhengzong could defeat or, if better, destroy this monster who had appeared out of nowhere. Their sister, Qin Ruxue, was looking at Yunxiao nervously, and her palms were even sweatier than Qin Yu's. Ever since Yunxiao walked up the platform, her eyes had not left his face even for a brief moment. It was only now that she knew he had been hiding his strength so deeply. She felt embarrassed, for she had always defended him in the academy. But it turned out that she was just making a fool of herself. At the thought of that, she felt a lump rise in her throat. Let's see how a fake alchemist like you is going to refine a medicinal pill today. Unsmiling, Sun Zhangzong walked over to the empty space on the platform and said to Yuan Hao, I will refine a 7-spin Bodhi pill. I need red glow leaf, white sunstone, prick of sky scorpion, aurora water, leaf of spinning parrot, and Bodhi seed. Master Yuan Hao, please prepare 3 sets of the ingredients for me. Yuan Hao's eyelids twitched as he said approvingly. Bodhi pills are the type of medicinal pills that can best display the strength of an alchemist. It takes 3 spins to form, 5 spins to level up, and when it is spun 7 times it will be a 3rd-tier pill. Moreover, there is a great difference even between the pills that are spun 7 times. He casually threw out a heap of ingredients, 3 of each. When it came to pill refinement, every alchemist had a certain success rate. No one could guarantee he or she would succeed every time. So, alchemists always prepared few sets of ingredients for backup. What about you, Yun Xiao? Yuan Hao asked curiously. He did not have high hope for this boy. At such a young age, he would be considered amazingly gifted if he could refine a 1st-tier medicinal pill. Yun Xiao smiled and said, I'll refine the same pill as him. It will be easier to compare. There was a flash of anger in Sun Jingzong's eyes. This boy is looking down on me. Yuan Hao was slightly taken aback. But, as he had witnessed the boy's arrogance, he was not bothered by that. Just as he was about to take out the ingredients, he heard Yun Xiao say, I just need 1 set of the ingredients. What? That shocked him. But he just sneered and said, As you wish. With a wave of a hand, a set of ingredients appeared in front of Yun Xiao. Yuan Hao was fuming inside. Even he, a 4th-tier alchemist, dared not to claim that he could successfully refine a Bodhi pill every time. He could not wait to see how this arrogant boy would end the match. Meanwhile, Sun Zhengzong rejoiced in his heart when he saw Yun Xiao only request a set of ingredients, which to him was no different from looking to be defeated. He reached out his right hand silently, and a mini blue cauldron appeared in his palm immediately, which slowly grew larger under the control of his divine sense. Eventually, it transformed into a large cauldron about half the height of an adult and fell on the platform. Yuan Hao's eyes lit up as he praised, Zhangzong, you really have a lot of treasures. Pill cauldrons were divided into 4 colors: purple, blue, black, and yellow. Between cauldrons of the same grade, purple cauldrons were the best, and the blue ones came next. Sun Jingzong's cauldron was a 3rd-grade blue cauldron, which was very valuable. He, Sun Jingzong grinned. It cost me dearly to get this treasure, and I am reluctant to use it during normal refining. He gave Yun Xiao a cold look and said, Boy, you should feel proud to be defeated by my blue cauldron today. You're nuts. Yun Xiao scolded disdainfully. Sun Jingzong's nostrils flared. Suddenly, he realized that he was the one who always started it and then got scolded. It was like he had purposely invited all the humiliation. That made him close his mouth, and he thought, this is a trap. He must be deliberately provoking me, and his purpose is to make me angry and eventually affect my refining. Yes, it must be. With that in mind, he forced a smile at Yun Xiao, with which he wanted to tell the latter that he was not angry, and that his plan had failed. Looking at that ugly smile, Yun Xiao could not help bursting into laughter. Ha ha! Look, he's smiling even when I scolded him. Nuts. He is really nuts. You! The ugly smile immediately turned into a furious look. Sun Zhengzong trembled with rage, for no one had ever humiliated him in front of so many people. Shut your mouth. Let's see if your pill refining skill is as good as your tongue. After saying that, he calmed himself down and focused all his attention on the refinement. The first thing he did was the selection of ingredients and purification. He quickly glanced through all the ingredients, which allowed him to fully understand their quality and volume, and then he began to calculate in his mind. Even then, he waved his right hand. At the gesture, a row of crystal containers appeared in front of him, all transparent and glittering brilliantly. Normally, when an alchemist reached the 3rd tier or above, purification could be done casually. But Sun Zhengzong did it carefully. These crystal containers were used by him when he was still an apprentice alchemist, and it had been years since he last used them. But he took them out today because he could not afford to lose. Red glow leaf, 50 years old. Purify its juice. White sunstone, purity only 70%. Remove the impurity with primordial qi. The prick of sky scorpion, 70 years old. While working skillfully, Sun Zhengzong murmured under his breath, as if he were all alone. The crowd was watching in silence with a pleasant feeling. During normal times, alchemists were all proud existences, and a third-tier alchemist was someone at such a great height that most of them could hardly get in touch with him. It was a rare opportunity for them to watch one refine a medicinal pill, so everyone was very attentive. After he went through all the materials once, the few crystal containers were already filled with purified raw ingredients that could be directly refined. Suddenly, he slapped the cauldron with a palm, causing the lid to fly up. Then, a ball of blue flame rose from his palm and fell into the cauldron. And after that, the lid fell back with a boom. A buzzing noise immediately rang out of the cauldron, and the blue color on its surface grew brighter and more striking. The blue wolf demon flame. There was a look of shock on Yuan Hao's face, along with a flash of envy in his eyes. Zhangzong, you are really wealthy. Sun Zhangzong smiled and said in a humble tone, it is nothing when compared to Master Yuan Hao's soulburn bee flame. Haha. With a cold and proud expression, he turned and looked over his shoulder. But what he saw froze him, and he almost fainted for a moment. What are you doing there? Fuming, Sun Zhengzong jerked a finger at Yunxiao. I thought we are having a match now. At some point, Yunxiao had found himself a fruit and was gnawing at it with his back leaning against the railing, smiling and nodding from time to time. Sun Zhengzong almost coughed out a mouthful of blood when he saw that. He was trembling all over as he bellowed, Master Yuan Hao, please throw him out of the match and declare him a loser. Yunxiao threw the pit off the platform and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, then said disdainfully, are you a fool? We have 2 hours. How long has it been? Can't I even eat some fruit to replenish my strength? Yuan Hao was somewhat speechless, but he waved and said, Zhangzong, just focus on your own refining. Before the time runs up, he hasn't lost the match. Sun Zhengzong snorted coldly. Keep making a fool of yourself. I will make you kneel and weep in front of me later. Nuts. Sun Zhengzong suddenly found that he was inviting humiliation again. Hurriedly, he turned around with a livid face and stopped talking, focusing all his attention on refining. After some time, the cauldron was fully activated by the demon flame. Runes constantly flashed across its surface and flew out into the air at times. Sun Zhengzong quickly took out the prepared ingredients from the containers and poured them into the cauldron, then began to carefully control the flame, sending a few incantation seals into the cauldron from time to time. Soon, a rumbling sound could be heard from inside the cauldron, while jets of air shot out of the few holes on the lid. It was the signs that the pill was about to take shape. Sun Zhengzong slapped the cauldron hard with a palm, causing the lid to fly up. A beam of blue light immediately shot out from inside as he sneered, trying to run away from me? Without hesitation, he threw out a few incantation seals, trapping the light with them. A glittering pill could be seen jumping up and down within the seals as plumes of blue smoke rose from within the cauldron, pouring into the pill. He was extremely tensed at this moment, because this was the last step for the pill to take shape. The nascent pill spun at high speed over the cauldron, absorbing plumes of blue medicinal strength. As its color grew brighter, its grade rose as well. 3 spins, first grade. 5 spins, second grade. The waves of aura exuded from the nascent pill kept rising. All alchemy products of 3rd grade or above would possess a certain degree of sentience, and the risk when forming the pill would increase as well, so it required a great external force to temper the pill. 6 spins. It only takes one last spin. With a serious face, Sun Zhengzong's fingers grabbed toward the nascent pill like an eagle's claw. Attracted by him, the blue wolf demon flame in the cauldron rose, sending tendrils of flame toward the nascent pill. Meanwhile, the waves of aura exuded from the pill grew more violent. 7 spins. Take your final shape. Just as he was about to lose control of it, Sun Zhengzong's pupils constricted and his face turned pale instantly as he focused his soul power on one point and crazily stabilized the medicinal pill, placing it into the blue flame to temper and shape it. As a result, the violent fluctuation began to be slowly suppressed. There was a look of joy on Sun Zhengzong's face, and his eyes gleamed excitedly. He knew he was just one step away from succeeding. The refining process is rather smooth today, he thought. I didn't expect to make it the first time. Yunxiao watched coldly from the side and suddenly narrowed his eyes. A hint of evil-looking crimson color flashed across his pupils, and then a faint fluctuation spread across the void. Yuan Hao was watching the refining attentively and nodding from time to time. Suddenly, he frowned, then looked over toward Yunxiao in surprise. He just had a weird feeling, but he did not find anything unusual. He gave Yunxiao a suspicious look, then turned his gaze back to Sun Zhengzong's refining, waiting for the last step to be completed. What is going on? Sun Zhengzong was startled. His soul power wrapping around the nascent pill seemed to be pulled by something, and it suddenly broke apart and faded away. In that instant, the violent pill essence, which he had suppressed, lost control, and an extremely dangerous aura spread out of the pill into the surroundings. Not good. Shocked, he hurriedly mustered his soul power and pressed it down onto the nascent pill. However, as soon as he touched it, his soul power was knocked back. It was too late. With his cultivation base, he could no longer make the pill spin one last time. How did this happen? Sun Zhengzong stood with a blank face, staring at the pill as it began to emanate waves of frightening aura. Yuan Hao's eyes narrowed as he gave Yunxiao another suspicious look. He had a vague feeling that the strange fluctuation he sensed just now was related to this boy, but he did not find anything that could trace back to him. Could it be a delusion? He did not believe Yunxiao had the ability to play tricks under his nose. Knowing that the refining of the pill was on the verge of failing, he sighed and cried out, "Su Xiang!" "Understand, Master Yuan," Su Xiang answered. He knew what Yuan Hao meant. He walked out lightly, and with just a step, he was in front of the cauldron, throwing a fist at the nascent pill. The jarring noise caused by the fist piercing through the air filled all courtiers' ears with sharp pain, causing them to cover their ears and squat. Bam! The punch hit the nascent pill and knocked it flying away, leaving a long straight blue line in the air. When it went about 100 meters away from the platform, the pill exploded. Rumble! The explosion produced a large cloud of blue energy over the 800,000 soldiers before gradually fading away. The force was so powerful that all the soldiers looked frightened and horrified. The explosive force was at least at the level of a great martial master. If the pill were to explode on the platform, at least half of the courtiers would die on the spot. Everyone's forehead was covered with cold sweats. Only now did they realize that it was not a pleasant thing to watch an alchemist refining, but extremely dangerous. Throughout the history, there was no shortage of tales about alchemists who blew themselves up during the process of refinement. So, most of the alchemists had a certain degree of cultivation in martial arts, and only then could they survive all the explosions. After a moment of trance, Sun Zhengzong rested his gaze on Yunxiao, his eyes filled with strong hatred. Although he did not know it was caused by Yunxiao, and he thought he had not controlled it properly, he needed a place to vent the emotions in his heart. Therefore, he turned his depression into hatred against Yunxiao. What are you looking at? What an idiot! You thought you are better than me by refining faster? Now you have to start all over again just like me. Yunxiao mocked in a cold voice. You! Sun Zhengzong was so angry that his beard twitched and his face turned livid. Please hurry up, both of you. You have less than the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn. Yuan Hao's voice rang out. Sun Zhengzong was shocked, and he quickly gathered up the ingredients and began the second round of refinement. Yuan Hao gave Yunxiao an indifferent look and said coldly, "Master Yunxiao, are you planning to watch like this from the beginning to the end?" His voice had a rich, sarcastic tone. "Ha! Of course not." Yunxiao gave him a faint smile. Then, he jumped lightly twice and spread out his arms as he began to exercise. Bend your arms, 1, 2, 3. Ha! Ha! Press your legs, 1, 2, 3. Ha! Ha! Twist your waist, 1, 2, 3. Ha! Ha! Exercise your wrists, 1, 2, 3. Ha! Ha! Turn to your left, then to your right. Ha! Ha! Everyone watched with wide eyes and dropped jaws as he began to exercise. It was a set of most basic exercises that built one's body, a warm-up exercise for the soldiers before training. Almost every soldier in Tianshui knew it. However, Yunxiao did it in such a funny way that everyone who looked at him felt their eyeballs about to drop. Li Chunyang was about to bellow at him and ask him to stop being a disgrace. But then he thought it would be better for him to shut his mouth and watch quietly from the side. All right, I'm done with the warm-up exercise. Time to start the refinement. Yunxiao walked over to an empty space beside Sun Zhengzong. He seemed to be pondering something and kept tapping at his own head with a finger. All eyes were upon him, eager to watch how he was going to end this. Suddenly, Zhang Qingfan stepped forward and said, "Master Yunxiao, please use my pill cauldron." He clapped his hands, and with the gesture, a simple-looking cauldron dropped out of the void. It was purple all over, which meant it was a third-grade purple cauldron. Sun Zhengzong's heart skipped a beat, and he was slightly tensed up. Although an alchemist's level mainly relied on his or her own strength, instruments could also provide great help. At least, his opponent's purple cauldron was several grades higher than his blue cauldron. "Keep it, I don't need it." Yunxiao gently slapped the purple cauldron, causing it to instantly shrink and then fly back into Zhang Qingfan's hand. Zhang Qingfan was taken aback, but then he calmed down and retreated. Since Yunxiao rejected his cauldron, he believed he must have a better cauldron. Although a third-grade purple cauldron was already the strongest cauldron among all third-grade instruments, as he already developed a reverence toward Yunxiao, he would never doubt the latter's strength. Sun Zhengzong felt his heart fall back into his chest, and he breathed a sigh of relief. But at the same time, he was a little surprised. Why is this boy refusing a third-grade purple cauldron? Does he have a fourth-grade cauldron? No, that cannot be. Even if he does have one, there is no way he can control it. With a smile, Yunxiao said to Yuan Hao, "Master Yuan, please lend me 10 pieces of superior-grade primordial stones. All my wealth is with you now." Yuan Hao frowned. When Yunxiao rejected the purple cauldron, he already confirmed his judgment of this boy. He is just messing around and playing dumb. When he loses the match later, he will definitely come out with all the tricks to reject the result. Humph. As long as I am the judge, I will not allow him to do that. Take it. Yuan Hao grudgingly threw 10 pieces of superior-grade primordial stones into Yunxiao's hand as he stared coldly at him. Yunxiao held the 10 stones in his palm. Suddenly, a jet of primordial qi ejected from his palm and shattered them, and for a moment, the sky was veiled by the stone powder. Meanwhile, he threw out his palm, from which came spewing out a force that gathered all the powder into a line, waving gracefully like a white silk ribbon with the movements of his arm. What is he doing? Yuan Hao's eyes looked puzzled, but then he snorted angrily and said, "Is he playing a trick again?" Wang Chun was standing beside Yuan Hao and had not been talking, but as soon as he saw Yunxiao's movements, his eyes widened in disbelief. Yunxiao began to wave the ribbon, using it to draw all kinds of patterns on the ground. Bit by bit, the primordial stone powder fell on the ground, forming into one formation after another that were interconnected. Sure enough, a towering wave raged in Wang Chen's heart as he watched in shock. His master, Yang Di, had often used this method of conjuring a formation with primordial stones, and his techniques were almost identical to this boy. No, the boy seemed to be more skillful than his master. But how was that even possible? Yuan Hao's eyes turned from cold to suspicious, then serious. He had not learned this method, but when he was a second-tier alchemist, he had witnessed Lord Yang Di demonstrate it during a lecture. That was when Lord Yang Di had just become a fifth-tier alchemist. He did not expect that he would see it again after so many years, much less performed by a boy. Could it be that this boy was one of Lord Yang Di's disciples? He gave Wang Chen a look, but when he saw the shock and incredulity in his eyes, he rejected the speculation. When Jia Rong and Luo Yunshang, who were standing in the army, saw Yunxiao about to begin refining, they hurried over and watched him silently from the side. Jia Rong was very excited. Every time Yunxiao refined something, he could always obtain tremendous benefits. He was even more excited when he saw Yunxiao was using a brand new method this time. With clenched jaws, he thought to himself, "Just wait and see, you bunch of toads living under the rocks. How dare you look down on young Master Yun? When this is over, his reputation will surely shake the entire world of alchemists in the Firecrow Empire. After he was done with everything, the expression on Yunxiao's face turned placid. His look of an unbridled son of a rich family was completely gone, replaced by a demeanor of serenity and elegance, and he had a faint smile hung on his lips. For a moment, he was exuding a calm, deep air that would not change even if the sky collapsed and the earth shattered. Yuan Hao's pupils constricted abruptly as he was utterly shocked. It was not only because of the changes in Yunxiao's expression, but also the rings of soul power fluctuations spreading out of him, which had quickly risen to the level of a first-tier alchemist. How did he do that? Yuan Hao felt he could hardly stand still as waves of shock pounded at him over and over in his heart. He could not believe that Yunxiao could hide his strength under the divine sense of a fourth-tier alchemist. Rumble. Yunxiao lightly pointed out a finger. A burst of air shot out of it and hit on the primordial stone powder, producing a string of sparks that instantly kindled the powder and set them ablaze, with flames half the height of an adult rising wildly up into the air. What is he doing? Trying to char some meats? Thought Sun Zhengzong. He was puzzled because he knew nothing about the technique. But his eyes widened in shock quickly, because he saw Yunxiao throw the only set of ingredients he had all into the flame. He didn't classify nor purify the ingredients, and he didn't even need a cauldron. He just burns them all over the flame. At this moment, Sun Zhengzong's knowledge of pill refinement began to show some cracks. He shook his head and thought, "Focus, focus. This boy is just messing around, and his intention is to distract me. I can't fall into his trap." With that in mind, he held his breath and focused all his attention back on the refining. Yunxiao quickly performed a few incantation gestures with both hands and sent them into the roaring flames. Immediately, the disordered flames began to transform, shaping into various things like dragons, phoenixes, mountains, trees, and even naked girls. The sight of them took everyone's breath and petrified them. Yuan Hao was completely baffled. With a blank face, he murmured under his breath, his flame-controlling technique. Wang Chen's face was serious as he said in a deep voice, "Yes, that's the flame-controlling technique invented by Lord Gu Feiyang, the flame movement." Astounded, Yuan Hao said, "Is he and your master?" Wang Chen shook his head slightly. There was a puzzled look in his eyes as he said, "I've never heard Master say he has a disciple like this. In addition to my master, Jun Ruyun, the son-in-law of the Guwu Empire, had also inherited Lord Gu Feiyang's alchemy legacy. Could this kid be Uncle Master Jun Ruyun's disciple?" Yuan Hao paused for a moment, then shook his head and said, "I don't think so. If he is really Lord Jun Ruyun's disciple, he would not have stayed in such a small place like Tianshui. Not to mention that the Guwu Empire is thousands of miles away from here." Wang Chen thought of that too, and he felt it become more and more incredible and difficult to understand. The flames turned into various forms, burning the ingredients that hovered over them separately. Each was meticulously controlled. The ingredient that required only brief scorch had a tiny flower emanating warm heat beneath it, while the one that needed to be tempered with high heat had a bear roaring at it. The prick of sky scorpion was held in the mouth of a flaming toad, turning red as it burned at it. The entire refining process was simply a lively and beautiful painting. "It's him. It must be him." Luo Yunshang watched with tears trickling down her cheeks. She was not 100% certain before this, but when she saw the flame movement, she no longer had doubts. The person behind Yunxiao must be that man. "Master Yuan Hao, who do you think will win the match?" Wang Chun could not help but ask when he saw both men come to the step of forming the pills. Yuan Hao paused, and then he said with a wry smile, "Before Yunxiao used the flame movement, I had no doubt that Zhengzong will be the winner. But I'm not so sure now." Wang Qin chuckled. "I think Master Sun Zhengzong will win. Although Li Yunxiao is skillful, he only has the soul power of a first-tier alchemist. He can't hope to refine the seven." His words came to an abrupt stop as if a toad had been shoved into his mouth, and his eyes grew so wide that his eyeballs seemed to almost pop out of the sockets. After Yunxiao's Bodhi pill spun 3 times, his soul power suddenly soared, reaching the level of a second-tier alchemist. Yuan Hao's mouth dropped open as well, and he said in shock, "What? Has he been holding back his soul power?" He was using first-tier soul power before 3 spins, second-tier after that. Don't tell me his soul power will rise to third-tier later. How did he manage to control his soul power so precisely? Even I can't detect his actual strength. Is there really such an amazing cultivation technique in the world? Wang Chun swallowed hard, as if he had just swallowed a toad, and he felt sick in his chest. With his forehead covered in cold sweat, he said, "My master once told me that a good alchemist could use his soul power at the right place, without causing any wastage. So, if an average alchemist can only refine a medicinal pill, those alchemists of the same tier who know how to minimize the wastage of their soul power can refine at least 3 pills." There was a look of shock mixed with envy in Yuan Hao's eyes. "Your master is right. Look at Yunxiao's face. His pill has spun 4 times, and yet he still appears so calm as if it is nothing. Although Zhengzong's pill has spun 5 times, he seems at the end of his tether already." Wang Chun nodded with a wry smile. He knew his master was right, but it was an extremely advanced soul-controlling technique that even his master had just begun to learn. So, how did a 15-year-old boy know the technique and could even use it? At this moment, apart from Yuan Hao and Wang Chun, who were talking in low voices, everyone was shocked and looked dumb. The match between the two gave everyone a very strong visual impact. Sun Zhengzong was covered in cold sweat from head to toe. His face extremely pale and his movements clumsy like a laborer who was moving bricks in desperation. On the other hand, Yunxiao's movements were graceful and smooth, with incantation seals flying around him like butterflies dancing around a flower. His handsome face looked pleasing to the eyes with the flickering flame shone at it. A short moment later, Yuan Hao blurted out as if someone had struck him on the chest with a hammer, "Third tier! His soul power has risen to 3rd tier now." When the Bodhi pill spun the 5th time, the soul power emanated from Yunxiao grew even stronger, jumping straight up to the level of a 3rd-tier alchemist. Zhang Qingfan and Su Han exchanged a shocked glance. Their eyes were filled with unconcealed astonishment and joy as they held their breath and watched every movement of Yunxiao attentively. The reverence in their eyes was so thick that it was as if they were not looking at a person, but the endless road of alchemy. As soon as he saw their expressions, Qin Yang felt a burst of unusual depression in his heart. He knew the situation had begun to turn for the worse for him. He exchanged a look with Gao Feng, who was standing behind him, and both saw the worries in each other's eyes. Sun Zhengzong had also discovered Yunxiao's aura, and his heart was already filled with towering waves and tremendous pressure. At the moment, his nascent pill had entered the stage of 7 spins, which was where he had failed previously. Throwing all caution to the wind, he clenched his jaws and roared. Meanwhile, with a slap of a hand in the air, a dark blue jade talisman appeared in his palm, flashing with blue light as tiny electric arcs darted out of it. As soon as Yuan Hao squinted at it, he jumped from his seat and cried out, "A primordial thunder talisman!" Wang Chun was startled as well, and he said shockingly, "Is he going to use thunderbolts to condense the pill?" If an alchemy product was over 5th tier, a natural phenomenon would be triggered and the force of thunder would be produced when it was taking shape during the refining process, which was the legendary thunder tribulation. It was because the object was overly heaven-defying. Therefore, its existence was not permitted by the heavenly Tao, and thunderbolts would be sent to destroy it. So, the biggest challenge any objects above 5th tier had was not from the strength of alchemists' soul power, but whether they could withstand the thunder tribulation. However, objects that had gone through thunder tribulations were extremely powerful, and hence the 5th tier was a watershed for alchemists. Many alchemists could refine 5th tier objects, but most of them would turn into ashes in the face of the thunder tribulations, stopping the alchemists from becoming 5th tier alchemists. Yuan Hao was one of such alchemists. The primordial thunder talisman in Sun Zhengzong's hand was a 5th tier jade talisman. It contained a trace of thunder force that some mighty alchemist had forcibly taken when an object was transcending the thunder tribulation. Such a jade talisman was extremely valuable. It could be used directly when refining lower-tiered objects, triggering the force of thunder to improve the object's grade. Moreover, since the thunder force in it had already been refined, it would not produce a strong damage and was safe to use. Therefore, it was viewed as a precious treasure by all lower-tiered alchemists. Sun Zhengzong turned and saw that Yunxiao's refinement had entered the stage of 6 spins. A trace of resolution immediately replaced the reluctance in his eyes. Abruptly, he activated the jade talisman in his hand and slapped it on the cauldron. Rumble! A thunderous sound rang out of the cauldron like the mighty roar of heaven and earth. Everyone's eyes widened as they watched thunderbolts crackle and dart out of the blue cauldron, rushing up over the nascent pill and instantly shattering its violent essence. Then, a blue thunderbolt wrapped the pill and began to temper it. 8 spins. Sensing the waves of pill aura spreading out of the nascent pill, Yuan Hao let out a faint sigh and said, Li Yunxiao is about to lose the match. The Bodhi pill has entered the 8th spin. Moreover, it is being refined by the thunderbolt. Even if it can't spin the 9th time and reach the 4th tier, it will not be too far from it. Wang Chan said lightly, It will be a glorious defeat though. It's just that the bets are too damaging. With a wry smile, he shook his head. Yuan Hao seemed to think otherwise, and he said, Young people are inevitably short-tempered and always feel arrogant and proud of themselves with a little achievement. It is a good thing for him to be lessened. Haha! The pill is taking its final shape now. Sun Zhengzong's eyes burned with wild joy as his hands flashed with incantation gestures. Surrounded by thunderbolts, the Bodhi pill over the blue cauldron emanated a shocking medicinal strength as it reached the peak level of 8 spins. Rumble! Suddenly, the 3rd-tier blue cauldron was blown apart in the instant the pill took shape, as if it could no longer withstand the tremendous pressure. The vessel shattered into pieces and shot into all directions. Many warriors jumped out of the crowd and stopped the shreds from hurting people. Sun Zhengzong's face was covered in pity and pain, but when he looked at the final product in his palm, an 8 spins Bodhi pill, his gloomy mood vanished instantly. Exalted, he roared with laughter. Ha! An 8 spins Bodhi pill. Boy! Unless you can refine a 4th-tier Bodhi pill that has spun 9 times, you have lost the match. There was a hint of a smile on Yuan Hao's face as he said approvingly, Zhangzong, it seems your strength will improve a lot after this refinement. Although you've destroyed a 3rd-tier blue cauldron, it paid off when you refined a peak 3rd-tier medicinal pill. Take your time to study the process again. Perhaps you will make a breakthrough soon. Sun Zhengzong smiled wryly. It will not be so easy for me to break through, but I did learn something new during the refinement. He turned and stared coldly at Yunxiao. Although his opponent's skillful techniques surprised him, he felt completely relieved. Unless Yunxiao could step into the 4th tier, he had lost the match. Zhang Qingfan and Su Han exchanged a glance in silence. Their faces looked worried. Even fresh 4th-tier alchemists like them might not be able to refine an 8 spins Bodhi pill so smoothly. But Yunxiao still wore the same calm expression as he continued to refine the medicinal pill in midair with his primordial qi. Soon it was at the stage of the 7th spin, and his face began to turn pale. Clearly, the consumption of his soul power had grown greater as well. A deep look of sympathy appeared on Yuan Hao's face as he sighed and said, I can't believe he managed to refine the Bodhi pill to the 7th spin without using a cauldron. And his age, he is such a freakish genius. What a pity! Upon hearing that comment, Sun Zhengzong's face flickered, and there was a killing intent in his eyes that could not be concealed. Yunxiao's innate talent did strike fear deep into his heart. He is still very young. Although I can defeat him now, what about 5 years later? 10 years? At the thought that he had offended such a terrifying existence, Sun Zhengzong began to feel nervous. Master Yuan Hao, do you think his pill can enter the 8th spin? Asked Wang Qin lightly. Yuan Hao carefully observed for a moment, and only then did he answer. The flames in the formation beneath have begun to gradually weaken, showing signs of dying off completely. Moreover, his soul power needs to shape the pill and control the flames at the same time. I don't think there's much hope. If he had accepted Master Zhang Qingfan's 3rd-tier purple cauldron, I think he would have no problem in making the pill spin 8 times. Unfortunately, This young man is just too arrogant. Wang Chun fell silent. It was plain that he agreed with that view. As the few men were talking, Yunxiao's pupils suddenly grew larger, and then a stream of soul power ejected out of them, sweeping up the flames of primordial qi that were about to die off from the ground and pouring them into the Bodhi pill. What? Is he trying to forcibly increase the Bodhi pill's tier with the flames of primordial qi? Shocked, Yuan Hao cried out in terror. In that case, it is possible for him to make the pill spin the 8th time. But, with the flames dying off completely, how is he going to condense the pill in the end? All his hard work will be in vain if he fails to condense the pill. And even if he manages to do it, without powerful elemental energy, it will still be extremely difficult for him to maintain the pill in its 8 spins form. Wang Chen's eyes flickered. He must have sensed Master Sun's 8 spins Bodhi pill. Therefore, he is making a desperate attempt. By doing this, the worst result he can get is the explosion of the pill, and since he is losing anyway, perhaps he can fight himself a slim chance of success. A slim chance of success? Sun Zhengzong scoffed. Can a desperate attempt make one break through the 4th tier? That gave Wang Chun a pause, and then his beaming face dimmed. He felt what he said was indeed somewhat far-fetched. But he was puzzled at the same time. What is he thinking in the face of this inevitable defeat? Is it all about doing meaningless things? 8 spins. A burst of violent aura exuded from Yunxiao's Bodhi pill. Sure enough, it had entered the state of the 8th spin, becoming more unstable and harder to control. I can't believe he just forcibly made the pill enter the state of the 8th spin with bare hands. This kid is indeed a monster. Yuan Hao was utterly stunned, and his eyelids twitched violently. What is he doing now? Refining the pill with his primordial qi instead of primordial flame? Isn't he going to condense the pill yet? Is he really making a desperate attempt? There was a serious tone in his voice as he said deeply, Su Xiang, get ready to act. If an 8 spins Bodhi pill exploded, its power would be far beyond that of a 7 spins one. He had attached great importance to Yunxiao because of his outstanding talent, so he did not want the other to get hurt. As for the others on the platform, he did not care if they were all killed. Yes, Master Yuan Hao. Su Xiang narrowed his eyes slightly, his heart filled with towering waves as well. He had been following Yuan Hao for a long time, and he knew very well about some techniques used by alchemists. From what he saw, monster was indeed the only word that could be used to describe Yunxiao. Yunxiao breathed a long breath as he felt half of the primordial qi in him disappear in an instant. The primordial qi of a 3 stars martial master can only bring me to this stage, he thought to himself. The only step left now is pill condensation. If I have to defeat that 8 spins Bodhi pill, I'll have to try that thing. He did not expect Sun Zhengzong to have a primordial thunder talisman. Initially, he was confident that he could push his medicinal pill directly to the peak of 8 spins, but that would only end up in a draw now. A draw? Humph! How dare a mere 3rd-tier alchemist act so arrogantly in front of me? I'll teach you a hard lesson today. He flicked open his eyes, and a mark of a flaming cloud gradually emerged on his forehead. It looked like a birthmark, but also seemed to be burning slowly as if it were alive. Sun Zhengzong and Yuan Hao were startled at the same time. Both of them owned demon flames, and just when Yunxiao's mark of a flaming cloud appeared, they found that the demon flames in their bodies suddenly began to twitch and jump while giving off a sense of fear, as if they were trying to escape. What is that flame? Both of them stared in terror at the dot of almost invisible flame in front of Yunxiao. Yunxiao's expression was extremely serious. This was the first time he was using the Phoenix True Flame. With his current strength, there was no way he could control it, and he could only slightly touch the thread of the flame's apparition, which was the projection of the divine flame that fell on the void now. But the temperature of the whole platform soared instantly just because of the projection. Everyone was drenched in sweat, their faces pale with fright as they watched the tiny, almost invisible flame fall lightly on the Bodhi pill. Condense now! Yunxiao's hands flashed with incantation gestures. It was so fast that all eyes were dazzled, and the void was filled with numerous afterimages. Many of the incantation gestures were so strange that even Yuan Hao had not seen them before, so he stared at them with wide eyes, unblinking. Condense! When he had done all that, Yun Xiao finally gave a shout. With that, the scorching heat suddenly dropped as all the true flames were sucked into the pill while a dark cloud began to gather in the sky, in which thunderbolts were flashing and flickering, as if it were about to rain. Yuan Hao looked up abruptly at the sky and cried out in shock. A natural phenomenon. A third-tier medicinal pill has triggered a natural phenomenon. At this moment, not only he, but all the alchemists present felt their common sense just crumble into pieces. Rumble. A thunderbolt as thick as a thumb fell from the sky, striking directly at the Bodhi pill. A great amount of thunder force immediately spread out of the pill while crackling. The dark cloud in the sky vanished immediately after the thunderbolt fell, while the Bodhi pill in the air had finally condensed and taken its shape, falling into Yun Xiao's palm. In fact, Yun Xiao was also extremely surprised. Supposedly, it was impossible for a medicinal pill of this tier to trigger the force of nature. Although the thunderbolt was countless times weaker than the normal thunder tribulation, it was really caused by the condensation of the pill. Could the thunderbolt be attracted by the phoenix true flame? He thought to himself. At the moment, everyone was stupefied and their eyes were all fixed on the medicinal pill in Yun Xiao's palm. The round pill was giving off a pleasant, refreshing aroma. Wang Chun swallowed hard, and he felt he could not think properly. What is the tier of that medicinal pill? Even if it is a fourth-tier medicinal pill, there is no way it can attract a thunderbolt. For a moment, Sun Zhangzong was petrified, but then he shuddered and recovered from his shock. Meanwhile, he felt extremely nervous. Yuan Hao had a serious look on his face and his body trembled slightly. He knew even he could not refine and condense a pill like this. Moreover, all he needed to become a fifth-tier alchemist now was to condense a pill with a thunderbolt, but he had explored for years to no avail. And yet, it was accomplished by a young man today. His eyes were full of enthusiasm as he began to show the same reverence as Zhang Qingfan and Su Han. With a very polite tone, he said, "Master Yun Xiao, can I have a look at your Bodhi pill?" Yun Xiao smiled as he wiped the sweat off his forehead with a hand, and then held out the pill. "Master Yuan Hao is the judge, so I naturally have to let you have a look." The round medicinal pill rolled into Yuan Hao's hand, and he placed both pills side by side and carefully studied them. Their size and color were almost the same, but there was one significant difference. There was a faint blue line on Sun Zhengzong's pill, while Yun Xiao's had two, one blue and one red. After comparing them, Yuan Hao could not help but ask, "Master Yun Xiao, why are there two lines on your pill? And what happened to that thunder tribulation? Normal thunder tribulation would not be so weak." Unknowing to himself, he had begun to address Yun Xiao as master, which sounded extremely unpleasant in Sun Zhengzong's ear. "Oh, I've no idea about that thunderbolt. If truth be told, this is the first time I have refined a third-tier medicinal pill." "What? First time?" Everyone was shocked, their faces incredulous. Yuan Hao turned to look at Zhang Qingfan, and when he saw the latter nod slightly to confirm that, he felt his head reel at such an incredible fact. Sun Zhengzong felt that his heart was getting more and more overwhelmed by these blows. He did not want to suffer anymore, so he urged, "Master Yuan Hao, what is the result? Who is the winner?" Yuan Hao carefully compared the pills once again, then pondered in silence. At last, he said, "Master Yun Xiao is the winner. Read comics on our Webnovel.live." "What?" Sun Zhengzong was taken aback, and he flew into a rage in the next instant. "How's that even possible? Mine is a peak 8 spins pill, the strongest medicinal pill below the fourth tier. Look carefully again, Master Yuan Hao. Even if his is a peak 8 spins pill as well, the match is a draw." All the alchemists present could feel that Yun Xiao's pill was not a fourth-tier pill and should be a peak third-tier pill. In the face of Sun Zhengzong's questioning, Yuan Hao was not angry, but patiently explained, "Yes, your Bodhi pill is a peak third-tier medicinal pill, but Master Yun Xiao's is a pseudo-fourth-tier medicinal pill. I presume you know how a pseudo-fourth-tier pill is produced." Sun Zhengzong paused for a moment before he screamed, "Impossible! A pseudo-fourth-tier medicinal pill is the result of a mistake during the refinement of a fourth-tier pill. It is not a fourth-tier pill, and only a fourth-tier alchemist can refine it. This boy is clearly just a third-tier alchemist. His eyes burned with rage. Master Yuan Hao, are you an accomplice of this boy? Yuan Hao's face grew dark as he bellowed. What nonsense are you talking about, Sun Zhengzong? Ha! Yun Xiao chuckled. I've told you, Master Yuan Hao, he will definitely refuse to admit defeat. After slightly calming down, Yuan Hao threw both storage rings to Yun Xiao and said, These are Master Yun Xiao's things and prizes. Then, he fixed his eyes on Sun Zhengzong and said in a cold voice, Honor your words, kneel and kowtow to Master Yun Xiao. He had been polite to Sun Zhengzong, but he was like an erupting volcano now. All alchemists were proud and noble, and they could never suffer such slander, much less in front of hundreds of thousands of people. Yuan Hao had thought of interceding for him with Yun Xiao. After all, for a noble alchemist, kowtowing to someone was even worse than death. But now he had given up that idea. Sun Zhengzong had dug his own grave. When he saw Yuan Hao throw his storage ring to Yun Xiao, Sun Zhengzong screamed in pain. And when he heard the other ask him to kneel and kowtow, he began to shiver violently while his face turned extremely pale. With all the courtiers on the platform and the 800,000 soldiers beneath looking at him, how was he going to face the world for the rest of his life if he were to kneel and kowtow now? Drop to your knees now. Everyone is waiting. Yuan Hao cried out coldly. We've wasted so much time because of you. If you still don't want to kneel, I'll ask Su Xiang to help you. Sun Zhengzong turned pale and bit his lip, shivering all over. At that moment, Su Xiang lightly pointed out a finger. Two objects flew whistling across the air and hit Sun Zhengzong's knees, causing blood to spray out of them. The pain took the strength out of his legs, and he fell to his knees. Then, his head suddenly smashed to the ground, as though it was being pushed by a force. With his fingers curled slightly like claws, Yun Xiao was holding his head from across the void. The first kowtow is for being arrogant in front of me. Thud! A splash of blood spilled across the ground. Sun Zhengzong was pushed down on all four, and he was horrified to find that he could not break free from the invisible force in any way. Even Su Xiang's pupils were constricted, his heart filled with shock. This young man's cultivation of martial arts is not as simple as a 3-stars martial master. The second kowtow is for all the wealth you've robbed from the Li family's treasury. Thud! The kowtow shook the platform. Sun Zhengzong had blood all over his face, but it was strange that he had not fainted yet. The third kowtow is for Yun Xiao. Li Chunyang could not stand it anymore, and he could faintly sense the killing intent emanating from Yun Xiao. The last kowtow would most probably kill Sun Zhengzong, so he quickly stopped it with a cry. Spare him. Had it not been because of him, your Uncle Chun would have long died. Yun Xiao hesitated, but when he thought that this guy would no longer be a threat to him in the future, he kicked him to a corner like a bag of rubbish. Those who humiliate others will always be humiliated by others. For the sake of my grandfather, I'll spare your life today. Behave yourself from now on. Sun Zhengzong curled up in the corner, unmoving like a puddle of mud, and his forehead was a mess with blood trickling down his face. But the pain from his flesh was nothing compared to the pain in his heart. His spirits were gone, and he looked as if his soul was gone as well. After today, he would never be able to raise his head again. Yuan Hao snorted coldly and said, Master Yun Xiao, you don't have to waste your breath with a low guy like this. First he slandered you, then deliberately came out with a tricky topic, and finally refused to admit defeat when he had clearly lost the match. He is a disgrace to all alchemists. When a man was down, everyone would kick him. This was the way of the world. No one gave Sun Zhengzong another look, as if he were just a dog laying in the corner. Yuan Hao took out a small box from his ring, then walked over and handed it to Yun Xiao. Today's match has proven that Master Yun Xiao does have the strength of a third-tier alchemist. Since I am in charge of assessment in the Firecrow Empire's Alchemist Association, I'll now award you the third-tier badge. Please accept it, Master Yun Xiao. Inside the box lay a badge that was neither gold nor jade. Yun Xiao put it away and said with a smile, "Thank you, Master Yuan Hao." Yuan Hao's eyes flashed with a trace of joy as he said in awe, "You are the most gifted person I've ever seen in my life, Master Yun Xiao, and I'm sure that you will have great achievements in the future. It is a great honor for me to be here today to present you with this badge of a third-tier alchemist." He spoke with great sincerity, because he firmly believed that Yun Xiao's future achievements would definitely reach a height they would need to look up to. And what he did today was somewhat of an attempt to establish a friendship between them. Yun Xiao laughed. "You are flattering me, Master Yuan Hao. By the way, I am not quite used to you calling me Master. You can just call me Young Master Yun." Wang Chun, too, could not help but walk up and speak. "Yun, Young Master Yun, although you are younger than me, I really wish I can stay in Tianshui and learn from you." Yun Xiao studied him as he smiled and said, "So, you are Yang Di's disciple? How is he now?" Wang Chun paused, then a puzzled look appeared in his eyes. He had guessed that Yun Xiao must be Jun Ruyun's disciple. If that were true, then Yun Xiao should be addressing Yang Di as Uncle Master, and not his name. Moreover, his tone sounded like he was asking about an old friend. Could he be a good friend of Master? But his age. His head was full of questions, so he just cupped his fist and said, "I am. My master has already gone to the Sea of Soul Formation a few months ago." "Oh." Yun Xiao paused for a moment, then laughed happily. "So, he already has the confidence to break through to the 7th tier?" "Exactly. My master was from Tianshui, and over the years, I've been wanting to pay a visit to his hometown. It is not until today my wish was fulfilled." Wang Qin glanced around and suddenly said, "I heard that when my master left Tianshui, he left behind a scroll of a painting, saying that if anyone could crack the meaning of the painting, that person could ask him to do anything. I wonder if this painting is still in Tianshui. I've always wanted to have a look at it and see if I have the luck to crack it." Yun Xiao was a little surprised. "Oh, there is such a painting? You don't know about this?" Yuan Hao asked incredulously. Yun Xiao shook his head and glanced around. Meanwhile, Zhang Qingfan quickly said, "It is true, Master Yun Xiao. The painting is being stored in the Imperial Palace even now, and it is a national treasure of Tianshui." "When did Yang Di learn to paint?" asked Yun Xiao in surprise. Zhang Qingfan smiled. "That painting is not Lord Yang Di's work, but his master, Lord Gu Feiyang's. Lord Yang Di had said on the day he left that he used to be very slow in learning, and in a fit of anger, Lord Gu Feiyang had painted the scroll and thrown it at him. For decades after that, he tried very hard to understand the meaning of the painting, but he failed. So, he said that if anyone could crack the meaning, he would do anything within his ability for that person." Yun Xiao tapped himself on the head as he frowned and thought deep and hard. "Did I paint that scroll? Why can't I remember it?" Qin Zhang, who had never said a word, suddenly said, "I actually carry this painting with me all the time. Whenever I'm free, I would take it out, hoping to find the meaning. But unfortunately..." He took out an old scroll from his ring and asked someone to unroll it. 2 eunuchs carefully unrolled the painting across the platform, and everyone immediately rested their eyes on it. As soon as Yun Xiao saw it, he felt a moment of blankness, and then he burst into laughter. He laughed so hard that he almost got out of breath. It was a painting of mountains and rivers. In the center was the main peak, with peaks of different heights to its left and right. The mountainsides were dotted with white clouds, layer upon layer, which seemed to be moving slowly. There were also 2 waterfalls, one on the left and the other right, pouring down through rocks. The painter was extremely skillful, and at the blank space above and below the painting, there were 2 poems. "Lord Gu Feiyang is indeed an extraordinary genius," Yuan Hao exclaimed. Not only had he reached the peak of martial arts, invented various alchemy techniques, but he also had high accomplishments in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Judging from the workmanship alone, this painting is already a masterpiece. Wang Chun nodded repeatedly. Then, he looked at Yun Xiao in surprise and asked curiously, "Young Master Yun, what are you doing? Do you know the meaning of this painting?" Everyone's heart skipped a beat as they turned to look at Yun Xiao. If he knew the meaning of the painting, he could ask Yang Di to do anything for him, which was a tremendous favor. It was for this reason that Qin Zheng had always carried it with him and studied it whenever he was free, but for decades he found nothing. Yun Xiao tried hard not to laugh, but he could not stop. In the end, he had to point at several acupoints on his body. Only then did he slowly stop laughing. So, haha. So, haha. Sorry, haha. I forget myself. Ha ha ha. With a wry smile, Yuan Hao asked, "Is this painting really so funny, young Master Yun?" He had studied it for some time, but he could not find anything that seemed to be funny. After laughing wildly for a few more moments, only then did Yun Xiao point at the poems and said, "Read them carefully a few times. Ha-ha. Yang Di is really not ashamed of himself. Ha-ha." Wang Chen's face flickered, and there was a hint of anger in his eyes as he cried out, "Don't you insult my master, young Master Yun." Meanwhile, Yuan Hao looked at the poems carefully and read them in a soft voice. The green willow branches drop down almost to the ground. The plaintive sound of the flute is accompanied by the willows and late return clouds. The beacons on the battlefield throwing their beams in answer to the moon. The golden bells ring as the hats spin and the dancers jump. When he had finished, he thought for a while but found nothing to laugh about. So he turned his eyes to the poem below. So now people have endowed Changyang, and the angry Shirong returned to Beatty. Where is native land beyond the setting sun? There are golden pearls in the waves. What's wrong with the poems? Many of the courtiers present were also pondering, trying to find out the secret hiding in the poems, but soon all looked confused. Luo Yunshang recited the poems under her breath as well, but she, too, could not understand the meaning. Yun Xiao, on the other hand, squinted at the crowd and did not say a word. "Fuck! What exactly is the meaning of the poems? Tell us quickly." Li Chunyang could no longer stand it. "If you don't tell us now, I'll chop you to death." With a smile, Yun Xiao asked, "In what mood do you think Gu Feiyong wrote these two poems?" It was only after a moment of silence that Wang Chun said, "He should be in a bad mood, because his disciple was a slow learner." Yun Xiao clapped his hands and laughed. Not only was he in a bad mood, but he was about to scold someone. However, Gu Feiyong is too good a writer to swear like a shrew. Look at the first word of each sentence in the first poem and the last word of each sentence in the second poem. The crowd quickly turned to look at the poems again, while Wang Chun read it out lightly. "Yang, di a fool? Yang, di a pig. Ha ha." Yun Xiao roared with laughter. "That's correct, Master Wang. The true meaning of the two poems is, Yang Di is a fool, and Yang Di is a pig. Ha ha." Everyone was frozen to the spot. Even then, Wang Chen's face fell. He was about to reproach when he recalled that it was he who read out the two sentences first. Hurriedly, he covered his mouth with both hands. Ah! Qin Zheng was completely stunned as well. He had studied the painting for years and came out with all kinds of ideas, but he never thought the true meaning would be that simple. There was an odd look on Yuan Hao's face as he laughed embarrassingly. Although the answer was revealed, nobody dared to read it out. "So that is the answer. Ha ha ha." Wang Chun was at a loss. We don't know whether the answer is right or wrong. I'll inform my master about it, and if young Master Yun is right, my master will naturally do anything within his ability for you." In fact, he was sure that the answer was correct, but he could not admit it in front of so many people. Therefore, he could only say it in such a tactful way. That shocked the crowd, and everyone was looking at Yun Xiao in envy. It was a great fortune to be able to ask Yang Di to do anything for him. Qin Yang's face fell in that instant. Rolling his eyes inwardly, he stepped forward and said with a big smile, "You are truly the pride of Tianshui, young Master Yun. If one day I'm lucky enough to become the monarch of this state, I'll surely marry my sister, Wuxia, to you and make you a king of the state." It was plain to everyone that he was soliciting Yun Xiao, and the terms offered were shockingly attractive. Qin Yu was taken aback. He did not expect Qin Yang to pull that trick out of the blue. Now, all the courtiers knew that Yun Xiao could decide who would be the crown prince with just a word, because not only had he won the favor and friendship of 3 fourth-tier alchemists, a chance to ask Yang Di to do anything for him, but also the support of the 800,000 soldiers beneath the platform. All these were enough to smash every trump card both the princes had prepared. Fuming, Qin Yu was about to come out with his offer when he suddenly froze. Making Yun Xiao a king of the state was already the highest reward. There was nothing better than that. And marrying Wuxia to him was an act to tie him with the imperial family, which was a method second to none. Qin Wuxia's eyes were wide and her face red with shame as she said angrily, "Qin Yang, you have no right to arrange my marriage." Qin Yang laughed. "Wuxia, you can't find any man who is better than young Master Yun in the whole Tianshui. Do you really want to give up such an excellent husband?" Qin Yu was so anxious that his palms were sweating. He was really afraid that Yun Xiao would give in to the temptation and suddenly go over to his elder brother. "Young Master Yun, if I become the emperor, I will give you more than what he promised." However, he could not think of how he would give more to Yun Xiao, so he just looked pleadingly at him. Smiling, Yun Xiao asked, "In your opinion, Wuxia, which of your brothers is suitable to be the emperor?" Wuxia said angrily, "None of them." Yun Xiao frowned. "This is difficult. Do you have any other brothers?" Upon hearing that, both princes cried out anxiously, "Wuxia!" That gave Wuxia a pause. Looking at Yun Xiao's troubled expression, she felt her heart began to drum. Is he really asking for my opinion over such an important matter? Could it be? Could it be? She dared not to think further, and her face blushed. Qin Yang said hurriedly, "Wuxia, when I ascend the throne, I'll immediately confer you the title of the Princess of Peace One, a great title that's second only to the Emperor." Qin Wuxia's eyes turned cold. Subconsciously, she stuck out her chest and growled, "Confer yourself the Princess of Peace. I don't want it. Although Qin Yu is a jerk also, at least he is better than you." Laughing, Yun Xiao walked in front of Qin Zhang and said, "Your Majesty, no one in this world can reign forever. Please abdicate and pass the throne to Prince Qin Yu." Qin Yang's face turned ashen instantly, while Qin Yu beamed with joy and kept rubbing his palms in excitement. Qin Zhang's cloudy eyes began to clear. Looking at Yun Xiao, he nodded slightly, and in that instant his face glowed with health, as if the problem in his heart was suddenly solved. He said to Yun Xiao, "With you by Qin Yu's side, I can now safely hand over Tianshui to him. But you must promise me one thing. Please tell me, Your Majesty." Qin Zhang glanced at Qin Yang, who was standing behind him with a livid face, and sighed. "No matter what, you must keep Yanger alive. I fear that as soon as I died, you all will make him follow me." He himself had experienced the cruelty of the imperial family. The reason why he did not ask Qin Yu was that he understood that those who were born in the imperial family never kept their words, and power was the only thing in their eyes. And through a brief contact, his intuition told him that Yun Xiao was a reliable person. Qin Yang trembled slightly, and he stared at Qin Zhang in disbelief. A sudden feeling of guilt welled up in his heart. Yun Xiao nodded and said, "I understand. I promise you." Qin Zhang breathed a sigh of relief, and then he said in a solemn voice, "I hereby officially declare that." A perfect silence fell across the platform, and beneath it, everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the announcement. Rumble. Suddenly a rumbling sound came from the distant horizon. Everyone frowned, turned and saw 3 small black dots in the sky, growing bigger as they flew over. Yuan Hao narrowed his eyes and said suspiciously, "That is?" Even then, Qin Yang jumped and laughed wildly. "Ha ha! They are finally here. You will never be my match." Qin Yu. The trump card he had been waiting for had finally arrived. Qin Yu's eyelids twitched violently. He had a bad feeling. The courtiers felt their heads reel. Was the succession to the throne really so difficult? They had already gone through a series of twists and turns, and they did not expect that there was more to come. Qin Zheng's face grew dark as well, and he stared coldly at the 3 approaching dots. When they had come close enough, the crowd saw they were actually 3 flying chariots. A huge character of Zhou was painted on each of the chariots, wrapped on both sides by 2 ears of grain, which seemed to be an emblem of some family. Sure enough, Yuan Hao cried out in a low voice. Flying chariots were the high-end war machines of the Firecrow Empire. Only fourth-tier alchemists could craft such machines, and they were extremely expensive. Only some important courtiers and nobles of the empire were eligible to own them. But now, 3 of them were here, and each was painted with the emblem of some family. That took all the courtiers present aback. Why are they here? Qin Yu's heart sunk, and his face grew serious. The repeated experience of great joy and sorrow had made him weary and on the verge of mental breakdown. The chariots slowly came to the side of the platform before stopping, hovering in midair. A huge bronze deck gradually stretched out from one of them and fell on the platform with a rumble. On the chariot stood 2 rows of soldiers in shining golden armor, and judging from their aura, they were all martial masters. A group of people slowly walked down the bronze deck. The leading man had a folding fan in his hand, and there was a hint of arrogance on his smiling face, as if he acknowledged no one on the platform. You are here at last, young Master Yushan. Qin Yang hurriedly went over and greeted the man. He looked so excited as if he had just met his greatest savior. Lord Yangbiao is not here with you? The prince glanced up at the chariots. Zhou Yushan frowned and put away the folding fan in his hand. A hint of unhappy look crept up his face as he said coldly, "Does such a small matter require my father's personal attention?" Qin Yang quickly bowed and said, "No, there's no need. I'm confident that young Master Yushan alone can settle this matter." Zhou Yushan snorted, as if his arrival alone was already a great honor for Qin Yang. He stepped on the platform and glanced around from the corner of his eye, and when he saw everyone wearing respect and fear on their faces, he smiled triumphantly and felt satisfied. Suddenly, he sensed several indifferent glances, which made him extremely uncomfortable. How could someone look at me like that? His eyes grew cold as he turned to look at the few people. But what he saw made his eyelids twitch instantly. Master Yuan Hao. Why are you here? In addition to Yuan Hao, he knew Wang Chun as well, who was staring at him with a sneer. Although he did not know the others beside them, he could tell they were alchemists from their demeanor. Why are so many alchemists here? Yuan Hao smiled and said, "Well met, young Master Yushan. I'm here on business." Business? Zhou Yushan frowned. Yuan Hao's so-called business should be something related to the Alchemist Association. Although he had a high status and was usually arrogant, he did not dare to show disrespect to the Alchemist Association. So, he said in a friendly tone, "I'm also here for some small matter and I'll leave once I'm done. I will not disturb you and your friends." He turned and glanced at the courtiers of Tianshui, and then rested his eyes on Qin Zheng. With a hint of a mocking smile on the corner of his lip, he held his head high and said proudly, "Qin Zheng." The tone in his voice was like a superior calling a lowly servant. A trace of anger flashed through Qin Zheng's eyes, but he dared not show it on his face. "What is it, young Master Yushan?" he said in a deep voice. "What is it?" Zhou Yushan cocked his head and smiled. "No one except His Majesty the Emperor of the Firecrow Empire dares to talk to me like that. However, considering that you are old, I will forgive you. I'm here today for the appointment of Tianshui's crown prince. Qin Yang is a good man, so he will be the crown prince." Qin Zheng's chest heaved with fury. He gave Qin Yang a cold look before saying, "Young Master Yushan, the appointment of the crown prince is an internal affair of Tianshui, and I don't think you should intervene. Besides, I've already decided who the crown prince is. My son Qin Yu." Under Zhou Yushan's cold gaze, he stood up trembling and cried out in the loudest voice possible, "I hereby announce that Qin Yu is the crown prince of the state of Tianshui, and I am now officially abdicating the throne. The enthronement ceremony will be held in 3 days. Long live your Majesty the Emperor. Long live Prince Qin Yu." The hundreds of thousands of soldiers cried out at the same time, their voices towering into the clouds and ringing across the world. Extremely excited, Qin Yu dropped to his knees and wept. "Father, I?" With a smile, Qin Zheng patted him on the head and said, "Stand up. You will be the emperor of the state of Tianshui in 3 days." So how can you show such a weak look? After that, he lifted his eyes and shot a fierce look at Qin Yang, who was as pale as a sheet. I was originally more optimistic about you, but you have disappointed me. I can't believe you colluded with outsiders to interfere in the internal affairs of our state, which I absolutely cannot allow. Zhou Yushan felt he was almost turned deaf by the loud cries of the army. He pointed at Qin Zhang and growled, "Old codger, how dare you disobey me?" Staring at him coldly, Qin Zhang scoffed, "The future of Tianshui will be decided by me. If your father were here, I might show him some respect. But you? Humph. You may leave now. You! Old codger." Zhou Yushan trembled with rage, and his voice was thick with killing intent. "Fine. Since you insist to go on your own way, let's see who will be the new crown prince when your current one is dead." It was a blatant threat, and Qin Zhang flew into a rage. He could not believe that someone dared to threaten to kill the crown prince in front of all 800,000 soldiers of the state. Suddenly a discordant voice rang out. "Who is this guy? He looks like he's quite something. Who is it? Who's talking?" Zhou Yushan turned back abruptly and shouted in fury. "Ha!" Wang Chen laughed. "He's the eldest son of the Zhou family of the Firecrow Empire. Because of his prominent family background, he usually behaves like this. Don't be offended, young Master Yun. Oh, so he's the son of some official? No wonder his nostrils are pointing at the sky. Is he not afraid that water will fall into them when it rains? Ha ha!" Wang Chun clapped his hands and burst out laughing. "You do have a good sense of humor, young Master Yun. But you're right. Every time I see him, his nostrils are always pointing upward. So I don't know if there's any water in them." Yun Xiao smiled and said, "Well, I don't know if there's water in his nostrils, but I'm sure that his head is filled with water one." "Ha ha ha!" Wang Chun roared with laughter and stared mockingly at Zhou Yushan. It seemed that there was resentment between them in the past. "Wang Chun!" Zhou Yushan's nostrils flared. Then he turned his eyes to Yun Xiao and growled, "And you, little bastard, how dare you laugh at me? You're digging your own grave." He made a dash, and he was in front of Yun Xiao in the next instant, swinging his folding fan down toward the latter's head. There was a long streak of fire in the air where the fan passed, looking like a flaming dragon descending from the sky. That gave Li Chunyang, who was standing to the side, a shock. But he saw a figure bolt over when he was about to strike, and in the blink of an eye, a huge axe appeared in the air, hacking down hard at the folding fan and sending sparks flying in all directions. The folding fan was clearly not some ordinary item, as it did not break under the great axe's powerful strike. Zhou Yushan's pupils constricted, and he retreated in a hurry, looking at the beautiful figure who fell from the sky and stood before Yun Xiao with an axe in hand. Zhou Yushan was taken aback, and he stared blankly at the face for a moment. Although his attack was blocked, it was the first time he did not get angry. Instead, he said in shock, "You? Who are you?" "A 5-stars martial lord." Luo Yunshang transformed the axe in her hand into its miniature form and put it away. "I'm a teacher from Jialan Academy," she said coldly. "Jialan Academy? I've heard of it. What's your name? Why are you protecting this guy? Do you know that to oppose me is to die?" Luo Yunshang frowned. She felt this guy was especially annoying, so she simply ignored him. She turned to Yun Xiao and asked, "Are you all right, Yun Xiao?" "I'm fine," Yun Xiao answered with a smile. "Although this fella is also a martial lord, it will not be so easy for him to hurt me. He might be no match for Zhou Yushan, but he would have no problem dodging the attack." Luo Yunshang nodded and said, "Good." The cold shoulder they gave Zhou Yushan instantly made his face turn dark with rage. "Hey boy, if you have the balls, stop hiding behind a lady," he bellowed. "Step forward and fight me one-on-one." "Fight you one-on-one?" A mocking smile brushed Yun Xiao's lips as he said, "You, a 5-stars martial lord, are challenging me. A 3-stars martial master, for a one-on-one fight? Brother Yushan, your face is so thick that it can be used to build the city wall." Zhou Yushan blushed a little, Then he gave a cold snort and unfolded his fan, putting on the air of a gentleman. If you don't have the balls, just say it. Well, I can spare your life as long as you kneel in front of me and kowtow until I'm satisfied. I'm not afraid of a one-on-one fight, Xianxia sneered. But I fear that your face is too thick for me to punch. Wouldn't that make you invincible? Ha ha! Wang Qin burst into laughter once again. Young Master Yun, you really got to the point. It seems that I'll have to be on guard against this when I fight him in the future. I think this guy probably has the strongest facial defense in the entire Firecrow Empire. Ha ha! Zhou Yushan finally exploded, and he screamed while pointing at Yunxiao, "Kill this boy!" Understood. A faint voice rang out from behind him, and then a man dressed in black stepped out and flew toward Yunxiao like a ghost. Luo Yunshang's pupils constricted. Suddenly, she struck out her axe, but it shrunk back to its miniature form when the man just lightly slapped it with a hand. A martial king! Shocked, Luo Yunshang threw out her palms, but then she saw something flash before her eyes. In the next instant, both her shoulders were slapped by the man. She felt all her strength leave her arms, and they fell feebly down. Humph! You have to step over my dead body before you can hurt my grandson. Li Chunying roared as his aura exploded, and he took a step forward, shaking the whole platform. Then he waved his fists, throwing 2 fireballs toward the black-clad man. A mere 1-star martial king. Back off! The man gave a contemptuous snort and pushed out his palms. 2 jets of air pierced through the void and stopped the fireballs, knocking them back. In consternation, Li Chunying twisted his body and dodged the fireballs, which then smashed straight onto the platform, collapsing half of it instantly. The flames that fell under the platform began to lick and crawl up the supporting structure. Xiao Qingwang had been watching quietly beneath the platform. Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes and gave the horseback a light slap before jumping up into the air and flying toward the platform. As soon as he landed, he punched out 8 jets of air that roared like dragons as they rushed at the black-clad man. An 8 stars martial king? Xiao Qingwang. The man was shocked, not daring to be careless. He quickly drew a circle in front of his chest with both hands, causing beams of golden light to shot out of his fists toward the jets of air. Bam! The attacks collided and created an explosion on the platform, throwing many courtiers to the ground. For a moment, the air rang with screams and shrieks. Meanwhile, teams of warriors rushed over and stood before Qin Zhang and others, protecting them from any possible assaults. However, in the face of a battle between 2 martial kings, they all looked horrified, fearing that they would be slain just by random attacks. Under the attacks from 2 martial kings, the whole platform began to collapse, its structure breaking and falling apart. Seeing that, Yuan Hao's face flickered, and he cried out lightly, "Su Xiang!" Understood, Master Yuan Hao. As he said that, Su Xiang's lazy eyes gleamed, and he took a step forward, treading gently toward the center of the platform. Suddenly, an invisible force burst out of him, stabilizing the collapsing platform. A martial grandmaster. Startled, both Xiao Qingwang and the black-clad man stopped their attacks and retreated to either sides of the platform, staring at each other warily and not daring to move again. Meanwhile, Zhou Yushan's face fell, and he said in a dark voice, "Master Yuan Hao, do you also want to intervene in my business?" Yuan Hao said lightly, "I just don't want to fall down from the platform. I know you want to have a one-on-one fight with me, but do you really have to create such a scene?" Yunxiao sneered. "Since you want it so badly, I'll give it to you, but it will be 3 months later and you get to pick the location." Yunxiao. Luo Yunshang stared at him in terror, aghast. Just like her, Zhou Yushan was a 5-stars martial lord, and she did not believe he could advance so fast in just 3 months. Zhou Yushan was boiling with rage when he saw the look in her eyes. Fine. 3 months later, on the Golden Crow stage of the Firecrow Empire, I will make you kneel and kowtow to me, begging me to spare your pathetic life. He gave Luo Yunshang a cold glance. Then he said with a sinister smile, "And this woman, if you lose, she will be mine." Luo Yunshang's face fell, and she flew into a rage. Yunxiao was a little confused. What does it have anything to do with me whether Yunxiang is yours or not? Not to mention we still don't know if you can defeat me. A frivolous look crept up Zhou Yushan's face as he said, "Stop pretending in front of me. I've seen countless girls, and I know from the way she looked at you and the concern in her eyes that she likes you. Humph. Only a powerful man like me can enjoy such a beautiful girl. A toad like you can stop dreaming." Taken aback, Yunxiao hurriedly turned to look at Yunxiang, who was blushing with embarrassment and rage. No longer able to contain her fury, Luo Yunxiang produced her axe and smashed it out with all her might. The weapon shone like a huge sun, making everyone who looked at it feel a stab of pain in the eyes. Zhou Yushan did not expect her strength to be so great. But, since he was also a 5-star martial lord, he had no fear of her attack. However, just as he was about to strike, he saw Su Xiang lightly grab the axe and take it in his grip. Then, the entire light vanished. "If you continue to fight, the platform will collapse," the martial grandmaster said in a faint tone. "Ha ha!" Staring at Luo Yunxiang, Zhou Yushan licked his lips and laughed. "What a hot-tempered girl. I like you. Wait for me. I'll bring you under control 3 months later. TSK. TSK. Let's go." He laughed and turned to leave, but he paused as soon as he stepped on the deck, with his eyes resting on Qin Ruxue, who was standing not too far away. He gave her a few glances and smiled, reaching out a hand and curling his fingers like a claw. Qin Ruxue immediately felt like she was trapped by a great force, which pulled her over to the chariot. "Oh! Save me, father!" Frightened, Qin Ruxue cried out for help. Zhou Yushan laughed and pulled her into his arms before turning and walking up toward the chariot. "Since I can't get the woman now, I'll have myself a little girl to quench my thirst. As the princess of a state, you are eligible to be my concubine. When we return, I'll marry you as my 23rd concubine." Ha ha! The Song of Blue Lotus Sword. While everyone was still in shock, Yunxiao had already drawn the sword of Springwater and bolted over. "You are looking for death." The black-clad man snorted coldly and threw out a palm, but he saw something flash, and he was shocked to find in the next instant that his attack hit only on an afterimage, and not the actual target. How's that possible? Even as the man was stunned, Yunxiao had already rushed in front of Zhou Yushan, making a slash with the sword. A huge blue lotus flower bloomed, smashing down hard at the other. "You are looking for death." Zhou Yushan was both shocked and furious. He could not believe a mere 3-star martial master would attack him so desperately. In a fit of rage, he flicked open his folding fan and swung it, sending out waves of force that transformed into powerful winds, piercing the blue lotus flower. The difference in their cultivation base was, after all, too tremendous. Yunxiao moved quickly in the air and dodged a few attacks, and then slashed out his sword again, ignoring the rest of the force waves. It was clearly an internecine fighting style. "What? Little bastard!" With his left hand holding Qin Ruxue and his right hand just having swung out the folding fan, Zhou Yushan could not attack again. So he hurriedly turned and rushed toward the chariot. Whoosh! A streak of light flashed through the void, and in the next instant, a long gash was cut across Zhou Yushan's back, with blood oozing out of it. Meanwhile, Yunxiao was also hit by the force waves, which left several bloody holes on his body. Only then did everyone respond. The black-clad man rushed over in rage. It was a great shame to him that he had allowed a mere martial master to injure his young master right in front of him. But Xiao Qingwang and Li Chunyang struck out at the same time, throwing attacks at the man and forcing him to save himself first. Yunxiao landed lightly on the bronze deck, his eyes shining with fierce killing intent. Paying no mind to his injury, he made a dash again. His sword turned into a bolt of lightning as it went straight for Zhou Yushan's throat. Frightened by his aggressive look, Zhou Yushan retreated in a hurry. Suddenly, a red figure flashed out of the chariot. A slender hand stretched out of it and pinched the sword with 2 fingers, and then a force trapped Yunxiao instantly, locking him in place. "Zhou Yushan, if you dare to touch even a hair of Ruxue, I swear I will make your whole Zhou family vanish from the heavenly martial continent. Yunxiao's eyes burned with rage, and his towering murderous air condensed into plumes of dark purple smoke in the sky. I will kill everyone in your family, old and young and newborn, he screamed at the top of his lungs. Upon hearing that, Zhou Yushan's heart skipped a beat, and he bellowed, "Kill him! Hong Ling! Kill him right now!" The owner of the slender arm only revealed half of her face in the chariot. She sighed faintly and let loose of the sword, then flicked it with a finger, which knocked the sword out of Yunxiao's grip and threw him back to the platform. The black-clad man was relieved when he saw Yunxiao fail to further injure his young master. He ignored Xiao Qingwang and Li Chunyang as he lightly kicked his foot on the ground and flew back into the chariot. Meanwhile, beams of blue light shot out of all three chariots and wrapped them around. "Why didn't you kill him? Why didn't you kill him?" Zhou Yushan's furious roars could still be faintly heard. "Are you all right, Yunxiao?" Several people gathered over. Looking at the few wounds on his body that kept gushing blood, they turned pale with shock. Yunxiao's face was dark with rage, and he did not feel any pain. He just gave Su Xiang, who was standing in the middle of the platform, a cold glance. The martial grandmaster felt his heart tremble, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. He could not understand why the glance of a mere martial master could affect his mood. He knew Yunxiao was blaming him for not helping. Among all the people present, he was the only person who could save Qin Ruxue just now. But he did not think a princess of a small state was important enough for him to offend someone from the Zhou family. However, after Yunxiao glanced at him, he felt a little regret for some reason, as if he had just missed some tremendous opportunity. "Wang Chun, I have a chance to get Yang Di to do something for me, right?" Yunxiao asked in a deep voice. Wang Chun paused, and then answered hurriedly, "Yes." Yunxiao's face was extremely pale. "Good. I will transfer the chance to you, but the condition is that you have to ensure Qin Rushua's safety for the next 3 months. Are you willing to accept it?" Everyone was shocked. He was willing to give up such a tremendous opportunity for something as small as this? Su Xiang truly regretted it now. Had Yunxiao told him this earlier, he would have taken Qin Ruxue back even if he had to kill Zhou Yushan. Yang Di was a 7th-tier alchemist, and he could use the chance to ask him to refine a few medicinal pills, which could help him make the breakthrough and become a martial emperor. "Yes, I am willing to accept it." Wang Chun narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Can I trust your words?" With a wan smile, Yunxiao said, "Yes, I will honor my words." Wang Chen's eyes flashed with excitement as he said, "Great! I'll now send a letter to my family and ask them to bring Princess Ruxue back no matter what." Then, he turned to Yuan Hao and others as he said, "Before it's too late, Master Yuan Hao, I'm leaving for the Firecrow Empire first." Yuan Hao nodded with envy in his eyes and sighed in his heart, thinking why such a fortune never came to him. After Wang Chen left, the platform was shrouded in a gloomy mood. Although Qin Ruxue had little place in their hearts, Yunxiao's forbidding face depressed everyone. Qin Zheng smiled and said, "Don't worry, Yunxiao. Since Wang Chen has agreed to help, Ruxue will be fine." Zhou, Wang, Mo, Cheng, the strength of each of the 4 superfamilies in the Firecrow Empire is greater than a state. The Zhou family will never fall out with the Wang family over Ruxue, and the Wang family will also do their best to save her, so that they can ask Yang Di to do something for them. Yunxiao made no answer. Jia Rong had already come over and tended the few wounds on his body. He just stood there blankly, with the killing intent in his eyes growing stronger and stronger. All the people around him felt discomfort, as if the door to hell had been opened. Most of the courtiers had fallen off the platform and were caught by the soldiers, and they were now looking up at them. "Don't think too much. There will always be a solution," said Qin Zheng. "I've abdicated, and Qin Yu, you are now the crown prince of Tianshui. The enthronement ceremony will be held in 3 days." Then, he turned to look at Qin Yang, whose face was bloodless, and growled, "Bring him away and lock him up." Qin Yu was extremely excited, and he could hardly contain his joy. After all the ups and downs, the dust had finally settled. All the military officers, Soldiers and courtiers beneath the platform immediately cried out, "Long live your majesty! Long live the crown prince!" Upon hearing the thunderous cheers, the common people in the capital breathed a sigh of relief. Soon, the shops on the streets opened their doors again, and the martial law ended. However, all kinds of rumors also began to spread in the streets and alleys, and the people were all chatting about what had happened. Yuan Hao wanted to discuss something about alchemy with Yunxiao, but when he saw the dark look on the latter's face, he gave up the idea. After congratulating Zhang Qingfan and Su Han, he brought his men and left, reporting back to the Firecrow Empire's Alchemist Association. Soon after, the whole capital was bustling with activity. Every house was hanging lanterns and putting up decorations, preparing for the ceremony that would be held in 3 days. Some of the courtiers joined the preparation, while others who had chosen the wrong side all looked sad and sorrowful. They had been busy as well, hoping to board Qin Yu's ship by asking help from others, but they were all rejected. Since then, they fidgeted day and night as if a great disaster was imminent. And the Li family had undoubtedly become the contributor of the highest prestige. A lot of people wanted to curry favor with them, but they were all stopped by guards at least 100 meters away from the Li residence, and no one was allowed to enter. In the imperial palace, Qin Yu had changed into a 5-claw dragon robe and was pacing back and forth within the throne room, sitting down on the throne and standing up repeatedly while laughing. Bai Mao had removed the sheet of thin satin that veiled her face. There were only 2 of them in the throne room, so she could be more relaxed. With a happy smile, she said, "After working for so many years, you have finally fulfilled your dream. You get the most credit, Bai Mao," Qin Yu said in a gentle voice. "It's been hard for you all these years." Her face blushed a little and she said shyly, "No, it should be young Master Yun." Qin Yu's face flickered suddenly, and his eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. "How do you think I should reward Li Yunxiao? Make him a king? Then what land should I give him?" The smile on Bai Mao's face froze. "Are you worried about him?" Qin Yu stood up with a worried look on his face and paced down the throne room. Li Yunxiao's strength is mysterious. He has the support of 2 4th-tier alchemists and 2 martial kings, and almost all the generals in the army are his men. If I make him a king, who will own the sovereignty of Tianshui in the future? The Qin family or Li family? Bai Mao was taken aback by his cold voice. "Your Highness, are you planning to get rid of Li Yunxiao?" she said in terror. He gave her a look as a wan smile crossed his lips. "I do have this idea, but I lack the strength and courage." Shocked, Bai Mao said in a hurry, "Your Highness, you must not speak so freely. If others know—" Qin Yu smiled and cut her off. "We are the only 2 people here, and I have only told you about this. Last time, you had performed divination for me and predicted that I would meet the benefactor of my life who would help me ascend to the throne. That prediction has proven to be true. Can you perform another divination on Li Yunxiao and see if he will pose a threat to me in the future?" Bai Mao felt a warmth in her heart, knowing that he only told her about such an important thing. She gave him a sweet smile and said, "Sure, I will do it again." Divination was a kind of mystic art that hurt primordial qi, and some advanced predictions could directly hurt the diviner's lifespan. Bai Mao knew she could not do it too many times, but she did it anyway for the sake of the one she loved. She took out an ancient turtle shell from her ring and placed it on the floor. Then, she bit her fingertip and used her blood to draw several strange formations around it. Finally, she took out a few gold coins and placed them down. When she was done, she slapped the turtle shell with a palm. In the blink of an eye, shafts of golden light broke out of the formations, and the 4 golden coins jumped into the air, spinning rapidly around the shell. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes slightly and watched from the side quietly, his face seemingly flickering with the shifting golden light cast on it. Bai Mao's pupils began to turn golden, as if she had established some kind of connection with the turtle shell. Soon after, the patterns on the shell seemed to be activated, as they began to reveal ancient, difficult-to-understand characters that jumped out and hovered in the void. Just after the 3rd character jumped out, however, the void over the shell seemed to be disturbed by some force and began to quiver. Bai Mao's face turned as pale as a sheet instantly, with beads of sweat rolling down her cheeks. Bai Mao, what's the matter? Qin Yu was startled. He had seen her performing divination before, but he had never seen such a sign. Puke. Unable to hold on any longer, Bai Mao coughed out a mouthful of golden blood and fell on her back. The shell's golden light faded away instantly, and the 4 coins fell back on the floor, losing all their color. Bai Mao! Qin Yu hurried over and helped her up. What happened? Some color had returned to her face, but her eyes were still filled with fear. In a trembling voice, she said, I can't see it. I can't see anything. And there is a voice that keeps telling me in my heart that, if I continue, I will die. Astounded, Qin Yu quickly held Bai Mao in his arms and said, Don't be afraid. We won't perform any more divination. With the look of terror still lingered in her eyes, Bai Mao said, I've heard my master say before that some people's souls are the manifestation of the stars in the sky, and unless we have mastered the arts of celestials, we can never predict their future even at the cost of our entire lifespan. Could this Li Yunxiao be a heaven's will? That gave Qin Yu a shock. Normally, the so-called heavens will refer to the sovereignty given by heaven, and only an emperor could address himself as heaven's will. But it was only a title used to fool and rule over the common people, and even the emperor did not believe it. Suddenly, a faint voice came from the back of the throne room. In that case, there is nothing to worry about. Who goes there? Qin Yu and Bai Mao's faces fell at the same time. The contents of their conversation were top secret, and they did not expect someone to be eavesdropping. If what they said were learned by Yunxiao, they would have to face serious consequences. Zhang Qingfan pushed Qin Jing out in a wheelchair. Qin Zheng's face was beaming with health, and he seemed to have suddenly become several decades younger. Father? You? Qin Yu froze for a moment, then said in surprise, You look very healthy. Qin Zhang gave him a bitter smile. Don't be surprised. I can't live much longer. I asked Qingfan to give me some stimulating drugs to keep me fresh at the end of my life. Shocked, Qin Yu asked, Why? Qin Zhang sighed. I've been in a daze over the years and have gradually forgotten a lot of things. I want to teach you something before I die. He gave Bai Mao a look as he sighed again and said, You were too careless in your conversation. Qin Yu and Bai Mao's faces flickered. Looking at Zhang Qingfan's cold face, they felt their hearts race. Everyone knew the other's reverence for Yunxiao. Zhang Qingfan knew at a glance what they were thinking, and he sneered, Don't worry, I won't tell young Master Yun. Even if I did, he will most likely just laugh it off. His face grew cold as he went on. But I advise you never to plan about plotting against young Master Yun in the future. Don't even think about this dangerous idea. Otherwise, you will have to face an endless disaster. Understood. Qin Yu bowed his head and answered in a low voice. Qin Zhang gave him a look as he smiled and said, I know you must be a little dissatisfied, but Qingfan is right. You can plot against or kill anyone in Tianshui, but never offend those from the Li family. Li Yunxiao is only 15 years old, but he is already a 3-stars martial master and a 3rd-tier alchemist. No one has ever achieved something so incredible. A man like this will not stay in a small place like Tianshui. The wide world out there is where he is supposed to go. Qin Yu paused for a moment. Then he said, Thank you for the advice, father. I will confer him the title of a king in tomorrow's enthronement ceremony. Which piece of land should I reward him? Just a random piece of land, but try pick the most fertile one. A random one? Qin Yu did not understand. Zhang Qingfan could not help but shake his head. Your Highness, don't you think the stronger young Master Yun is, the better it is for you? When he becomes a 4th-tier alchemist or even higher, do you think both he and his family will still be interested in the throne or land? In fact, I believe after your Highness ascends the throne, the Li family will gradually withdraw from the political scene of Tianshui. Qin Zhang said, Qingfan is right. Be relaxed. No matter how flowers bloom and wilt, take it naturally no matter how clouds flow high and low. This is the way of life pursued by experts like them, and it has been proven over time. Alas, it's a pity that I didn't understand this in the past, which caused Yang Di to leave with resentment and cost Tianshui its greatest opportunity. Your Highness, try to think about Zhu Tiansek's position and you will understand, Zhang Qingfan added. In the beginning, Zhu Tiansect was also just an aristocratic family of the Firecrow Empire, but it has now completely withdrawn from politics and become a great power on the heavenly martial continent. A super existence that we normal people need to look up to. I understand now. Qin Yu saw that in an instant, and the knot in his heart resolved. He quickly bowed and said, "Thank you, Father and Master Zhang. You are still young and have a lot to learn. It's a pity that I'd been bewitched by the throne over the years, which had led to the conflict between you and your elder brother. And now, I don't have much time left to teach you. Qingfan, Commander Bai, you may leave us for now. I'd like to talk to you alone." Zhang Qingfan sighed. He took one look at his old friend, who had been with him for many years, and then left the throne room with Bai Mao, leaving the father and the son behind. Several hours later, Qin Yu walked out of the hall, his face sad and tears in his eyes. There was a lonely look on Zhang Qingfan's face as he sighed under his breath. Shocked, Bai Mao asked, "His Majesty?" Qin Yu breathed a long sigh as he looked up at the sky and said, "Father passed away."